satin was the light from the stars. She wore blue velvet, bluer than velvet were her eyes, warmer than May, her tender sighs. Love was ours, ours the love I held tightly, feeling the rapture grow, like a flame burning brightly. But when she left, gone was the glow of blue velvet. But in my heart there'll always be precious and warm memory through the years, and I still can see blue velvet through my tears.
Okay.
Producing.
Hi. Hi, Lucio.
Hello, Brian.
I want to talk about video games.
I'm sipping my hair and I'm prepared to talk about video games.
Let's talk about your 4 lids first.
So Brian can't believe that I have 4 lids, but if you have a clean canteen, you know that they're accessible lids, like they're sippy lids, and they're hot tea or hot beverage double sealed.
These are all
lids.
perfectly rational things to say when you're alone
Look,
in your apartment.
I'm not
wearing
saying
no
I'm not a
clothing.
serial killer. I'm
Right.
just saying that
Right, I
4
am.
lids is very convenient.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Sure.
Anyway.
So I played a game recently.
Did you now?
I did.
I think it was a game that I played a while ago.
Well, no, I played a game before that recently.
Oh, okay.
And then I played a game
That
that
was
you
the
played
game
a
I
while
played
ago.
recently.
Right.
We switched places.
Yeah. We're hemming and hawing to our point here. So I played Wolfenstein: The New Order recently. If you haven't played it, faithful listener, I highly recommend it.
I would recommend it too. But I don't know if it was worth the $60 price point, honestly.
It wasn't. I bought it at Steam sale.
I did too.
I don't think any game is worth $60. I think that
We've
is
talked
a
about that, yeah.
corporate price point that is absurd. And I'm done paying it.
I probably won't. I think the last time I paid full price for a game was Titanfall.
Yeah,
which
me
I
too.
enjoyed, and now I don't regret it, but I'm hoping that they do something with it.
It's like a
that's
$60
meaningful.
hooker.
Yeah.
You had some good times, and now you itch.
I still really like the game. The
Yeah.
only reason I uninstalled it is because I have a really small SSD, and I wanted to play Wolfenstein. But
Yeah.
otherwise, I would have kept playing Titanfall. That and you stopped playing. Why did you stop playing Titanfall?
I stopped playing Titanfall because of the people who play Titanfall.
But we play together. Like, I mean...
No, we lose
you don't-
together. That's why I stopped playing Titanfall.
But we got to... Okay, so Felicia and Ian and I got to the point where we
where
weren't
you were
losing.
all losing together.
No, it was really give and take, and there were a
No,
lot
I
of really
heard
good
the
matches.
conversations. It was 70% lose, 30% just
It was
won.
not 70%.
It was 70%.
No, we had a lot of good games.
If Felicia was here, if I hadn't killed her and hidden her in the closet, she would agree.
I doubt it.
I'll go get her head. She'll agree.
No.
Yeah. Anyway. You know, my problem with Titanfall, honestly, is it does need single player. And I don't
does,
say
you
that
say?
it does need single player, and I'll tell you.
I don't know that it does.
I'll tell you why.
All right, why do you think
It needs single player, not because multiplayer on its own isn't substantial enough, which can be argued, honestly. I think that could definitely be argued. But just because playing with people online is horrible, and there needs to be a buffer so that you still feel connected to the game. Like, I need to be able to play that game and practice and do stuff without being in a practice mode. Or, you know what I mean? I need some... Also, there's a whole campaign going on which you ignore Because
Well,
if
the
you
campaign
stop to
doesn't
listen,
matter.
you lose.
It's just an excuse to get more.
But that's not a
multiplayer
good
going on.
thing to say about a game. Like, no, don't worry about the campaign. It doesn't matter. Then it
Yes
shouldn't even
and
be
no.
there. Like, they shouldn't even have talking. And honestly, when I first started playing, I thought that was an interesting gimmick. I liked it. But it became shallow and repetitive, and I realized I don't actually know any of these characters, so what does it matter what's going on?
Bish!
Yeah.
I would disagree only because it doesn't seem to me like the kind of game that would do well as a campaign, because I think about a lot of the games that do have campaigns that I played that I enjoyed, like Call of Duty and... Oh, shit, there was another one I was just thinking of. It's not a campaign, but it's a versus mode. Like when we play Team Fortress against the bots, which was I think is relatively new in the last like year and a half or so.
Yeah.
It kind of works because with Team Fortress, it's about teamwork. Titanfall it isn't really about teamwork,
No.
especially because most people are playing attrition.
That's a big problem.
So you'd have to work on that first. I don't see how it would work if you played in a campaign where. Because it's just so hectic, and you're so prone to death so often that it's not like Call of Duty where, you hit one guy in the sweet spot and he's just going to go straight down. I mean, you can kind of do that in Titanfall, but because you're like armored super soldiers of the future and there are these giant, robots walking around.
Sure.
I just feel like it would be... I can't see how you would make it a campaign, and it would feel like natural in the same way that the multiplayer, feels. Which was the point of the game.
I would say that the people who made Titanfall made Modern Warfare 2, and Modern Warfare 2 had a very good campaign. So I know that they're capable of doing a very good campaign. And one of the reasons we love Modern Warfare 2 so much is the same reason I loved Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. It's because it was 3 games. It wasn't one game. Titanfall is one game. So if you get tired of that game, you stop playing it. But with Modern Warfare 2, you could play the single-player campaign, and I played it quite a few times through. I enjoyed it.
I have to, yeah.
There was the co-op mode, which was fun in a completely different way, and then
yeah.
there was the multiplayer that made you throw your controller and quit playing for a while. I have controller throwing with Titanfall, so at a certain point I'm like, I don't really want to throw my keyboard. But again, I'm an adult male now.
But it's just a different set of parameters, because Modern Warfare is just people on the ground shooting at each other.
Diversity is never bad so long as it doesn't hurt the game as a whole. Like, we'll get into that in a second, because I think that's extremely relevant to a Bioshock Infinite.
Oh, okay.
But in general, I think diversity is good when it's part of the plan. And not...
The campaign wasn't a part of the plan with Titanfall.
I know it wasn't. And I know that was deliberate, and I'm not a fan of that.
It was kind of like the inversion of Spec Ops.
Let me say... To be clear, I don't think Titanfall is a bad game. I enjoy Titanfall.
No, I
as
know
a
what
game.
you're saying.
It's just unfortunate that I have to coexist with human beings, is all. If there were just no people, I'd like it more.
Human beings.
Those are the only kinds of human beings that play Titanfall, from my experience.
I mean, if they were, I don't know. I can't think of, I don't know communities very well, so I can't think of, a laid-back
There's
kind of
no
a community.
There's no such thing
you
as
can't
a community.
see the little... But what I'm saying is, the people who are still playing...
There's one kind of community...
What does Brian Long play? The Team Fortress, the classic.
Right.
The people who are still playing that, they're clearly devoted, so they're not just I would think, lol, fuck you, hacks,
right.
kind of the same sort of
there's
mentality. Because to play it, you already have to be invested in, finding a group of people who will still play that game with you.
Generally speaking, there's 2 kinds of communities, okay? Community number 1 plays old games like Team Fortress Classic or Left 4 Dead 2. Community number 2 is fighting game tournament communities, and all they agree on is fuck women. That is as close to a community as you have.
I love fighting games.
It's just,
man.
I rabidly hate vaginas.
Is it like that? I've never even looked that deep into that community, so...
I'm done hearing any kind of defense of gamers. I've really, in the last, I'm not sure, maybe a year, more than a year, I'm not sure, because it's one of those slow-building feelings you get. I've started to really despise the label of gamer for all of the weight that it carries. You know what I mean? Because some of the most interesting people are not gamers, because gamers are gamers. Like, when you have the idea of what a gamer is... There's the 1990s idea, which is like a nerd up in his basement, oh god, I'm playing my Nintendo. No one really thinks...
Zombies ate my neighbors!
Yeah, exactly. Oh!
I love that game.
That's my nerd voice. That's what I sounded like 15 years ago.
No, you didn't. You
I
did not
did.
sound like a 60-year-old.
I sounded exactly like this, only slightly higher pitched. I still had the nasal drone voice. It was horrible. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
First time you hear your voice on record, it's
I think
the
the
worst.
only recording I have of that is the Japan video. That was like right where I hit my nasal.
So bad.
And it sounds rough. That's the only time I ever sound like that.
I watched that video and I just have shame. I know the audience doesn't know what we're talking about. We've way off-roaded.
Oh, I never care if they know.
I can't even remember what my point was. Oh, what gamer means now is honestly, in my opinion, pretty much what it is. You know, when Anita Sarkeesian accuses gaming of, it's not 100% that, but it ain't 0% that. You know,
Yeah.
And I know we talked about her before and how I appreciate her, even though I don't 100% agree with her all of the time, but I think she's necessary. And I wish there were more people that were shades of Anita Sarkeesian that had as much attention as she did.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the huge problem. That is a name that almost people who don't even game know. You know what I mean? Because of how bad this medium is. In a perfect world, no one would know her name. You know what I mean? That's how sexist the world of gaming is.
I see what you're saying.
She would be unremarkable because
people should still know who she is, but
no much more than any other of the thousands of people that are personalities.
I take your point, yeah.
But her personality is exploded because she happened to point out a real problem. And here's the problem with gamers, and it's going to be relevant to the Bioshock discussion that we will eventually hem our way to. Gamers do not see gaming as art, and that is a big problem for gaming. It's not art for them, and the reason I say that is because they're afraid to be critical of it. We still have this idea from, like, I want to say the early 2000s. You remember the Jack Thompson era where it was like, violent video games are destroying our youth. We have to take them away from youth. And we were youth when that was happening, so that was like a direct threat to our gaming shit, right? And I think
kind of like music in the late 80s or late 90s.
Exactly. He was the Tipper Gore of gaming. You know, and I think
so that was why a lot of rap back then was what it was.
Sure.
Because it started off very, very much about being I mean, it was everything. Rap is very inclusive.
Every art is everything.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is one of the big things that came out of it early on that a lot of people don't know. Because we think of, like, more contemporary, like, you know, again, you can't see my fingers doing the thing, but, like, you know, more conscious hip-hop about how far we've come. But that's kind of where it started. But part of, as you say, like, kind of what you're talking about, the backlash was like, well, fuck Tipper Gore, let's just kind of go all in with this.
No, of course.
And, so
that element's always going to exist.
Yeah.
And I think there's some residual holdover from the Jack Thompson era of, if we criticize games, it opens the door for them to go away.
Yeah.
But we've gone too far the other way, which is we are strangling the medium to death by saying it's a 7, 8, or 9, or sometimes a 10. That's not a scale. That's just jerking off.
Yeah.
But that's like psycho jerking off. That's like, you know, you talk to a girl and she sees that words are coming out of your mouth and kind of smiles like, oh, okay. And then you go home and tell yourself, that chick wanted me. Like, that's where we're at with gaming reviews. They're just...
Yeah, the last game I remember people legitimately hating was, what was it called? I think it was called War Z. It wasn't Daisy, but it was like War Z was like
the War Z, I think it's called. Because it was just like, a cheap, quick grab.
Yeah.
We could get into Greenlight and how that's a huge problem, but then we'll never get to the Bioshock point.
Greenlight?
Everything bad coming out of gaming right now is coming out of the concept of Greenlight.
Okay.
That's the new horror front, especially because AAA publishers have realized that gamers are even dumber than they thought they were. Like, they can't believe how dumb these motherfuckers are. Let's sell them alpha access.
Yeah, that's...
You know, you could pay $60 for the PDF that is the pitch of the game now. It could become a game. If enough people buy it, fuck off. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, why gamers are shit.
Yeah.
I think that is part of the problem.
This happens at least once in every conversation we have.
It doesn't matter. We have one listener. We have two listeners. One of them has been on half of the shows, and the other one is just going to listen to us because we're just going to say this on TeamSpeak if we don't do it here, so it really makes no difference. It'll be like true. If his internet goes down and he has this saved, it'll be like he's in TeamSpeak for however many fucking hours we go on about this shit. But I wanted to say an important distinction, lest anyone believe that I think that is solely the reason that gamers are so defensive. I think another huge part of the reason that gamers are defensive is because they're immature shitheads, which is unfortunate. Not all of gamers, but all of the gamers that I see, and that's usually how cultures play out, as far as I can see, is the people that are the least offensive are also the least visible. You know what I mean?
Like by see, what do you mean? Because to be honest, like the people I talk to, like in my immediate circle, are, I guess you could call them gamers, although they're people and they have other interests as well. So I don't know if that works.
That's the problem.
So that's the thing, because like the people I talk to about video games mostly are just normal people.
But you've already hooked into the problem. You don't even know whether you want to call them gamers or not, because they're not enough in the bubble of what a quote gamer is.
So like that's what I'm saying. So what do you consider? Like, are you talking about? Because when you say see. Do you just mean people you read about on the internet who are like, their life is kind of consumed
Let
by
me make
video
another
games,
analogy, and that might make it more clear.
Okay.
There are a lot of men on Earth. There are not a lot of MRA men on Earth. And yet, men's right activists.
Oh.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And yet, those guys are extremely visible just because they're so caustic.
Okay.
To the degree, and males are a much larger... I know this is breaking crazy stereotypes here. The group called males is much larger than the group called gamers.
Yeah.
I know it's a crazy idea, but gamers are actually about half female, from what I've read.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Supposedly, I mean, the number, because like the number's gone up.
I'm sure it has.
I remember when it was like, I think it was like 10 or 15 years ago. I read something that said like, oh, you know, this is kind of an interesting problem because, you know, female gamers equate to about, you know, 25 to 30% of the audience. And yeah, I think I did see something. Like,
I wonder
at least
how
within
much
the last
of that...
couple of months, it's like almost half, allegedly. I mean, I don't actually know.
I wonder how much of that is like accurate, though. I mean, because
that's what I'm saying. I don't really know.
Girls are hesitant to self-identify as anything because they live in a world that hates them.
And that's what I'm saying. I mean,
you know,
information. What do you mean by gamer too? Because like, my wife plays video games.
She's gamer.
So she would count her, even though she won't play something unless I'm playing it with her.
But she plays video games.
Okay.
I mean, like, what would you call a swimmer? A person who can swim, or a person who can't swim? You know what I mean? There's a difference between can and doesn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or can't and doesn't, rather. So I honestly think...
You can swim. I wouldn't call you a swimmer.
Yeah, okay. But I was a swimmer. I don't know. This is different. When we're talking about the consumption of art, and I hate to use the word consumption because it implies that it's a product. It does hurt. It does hurt, honestly. But, like, you know,
But it is what it is.
You consider yourself a reader even if you haven't read in several years, right? Because there was an era of your life you read books. So you can give an opinion on what it is to be a person who reads books.
Yeah.
And you could read books any point in the future. You have not read your last book.
Yeah.
Unless I kill you tonight. You haven't read your last book. So I think the same is true. I think the same is true for that's my foreplay. I think the same is true for gamers. I think if you play a game, you're a gamer, right? Because here's the thing. The label itself is really useless unless you're trying to identify problems. Like, I really think the only point of labels at this point is to paint danger areas. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, what's it useful for? Because what is it helpful whether you call your wife a gamer or not? Your situation is so specific to your life, and that's the same way it is with every individual on Earth. You know what I mean? Like, I play games 40 hours a week, probably. I come home directly from work, and I play games pretty much until I go to sleep. That's as hardcore of a gamer as I can possibly be. But I don't think of myself as more of a gamer than, say, Felicia, or people or like my mom, who plays a game every 6 months, like once or twice. It's just how much you do it. But you're not way more of a movie watcher. You know, I guess you could be considered that, but people don't really say that unless all you do is watch movies constantly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, if we watched a movie every week, you wouldn't be like, oh, you're a hardcore movie watcher. It would just be like, oh, tell me about that movie. But we're not at that point with games. And I think that's part of the larger problem that games has. It's a product and not an art form. You know? And the people in it help push that view forward. That it's a product first.
You feel like it's not an art form at all. Like,
would you?
Period.
Would you?
Because
let me put it this way: would you pre-order seeing a movie in a theater? No.
I want to say no, but I mean...
Would you pre-order a book you've never heard of? You know what I mean?
Like, based on
if
what?
someone just told you there's this book coming out...
There is a book coming out I would pre-order that I've...
Yes, but there are specific examples for that. If I just sat down to you and said, okay...
They're supposed to release next year, I think 2015 or... It's between 2015 and 2017, I don't remember. Apparently the estate of J.D. Salinger has a bunch of like short stories that he never published, since he's died or whatever.
That's well and fine, and so not my point. But
that's what I'm saying. But I would pre-order the shit out of that because I love J.D. Salinger.
Yes,
and
people will pre-order things that they know about, but people pre-order video games like I'm going to be missing something if I don't pre-order it, and also I don't know what this is. So many people.
But who are
that's
these
what the
people?
industry.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's a great question. I don't know, but that's what the numbers say.
But I would think that the people who are pre-ordering at least have an idea, because okay, like you put on your point, E3 was dull. Like we have a little.
I have a sheet.
We have a little list. So okay, so
I have
E3
a wonderful.
was dull. That's
let me just explain the sheet real quick. I just wrote down a couple of things that I've either seen or thought about or expressed on Twitter in the last month, and all of these could be talking points, or they could be just me saying a sentence, and then Lucio says okay, and then we do something else.
But here's the thing. Okay, so you wrote E3 was dull. Part of I'm assuming. I mean, that could be a conversation or not. But part of what
we're
I'm
never going to get to Bioshock.
Part of what I'm assuming we'll get there. We'll get there.
We're not.
Because that's going to be a
fast
really big
forward 45
point.
Minutes. Fair listener.
We'll get there. I mean, what's our record? Like 3 hours?
I could kill 3 hours easily.
E3's kind of become irrelevant because so much information is just available by just going to any search engine and typing in. So who's actually ordering a game without knowing something?
Dude,
that doesn't make sense.
So many people, and that's why games have gotten worse.
But I just don't believe that.
That's what Greenlight is. Greenlight is
okay,
like
so
the
what is,
next
are you talking
step.
about Steam Greenlight? Because
Greenlight is a concept, meaning
okay, because there
started,
is something on Steam.
It started on Steam,
okay,
but now it's a concept that's
it.
gaining traction in other things. And the whole hook of it is we're just going to. It's like Kickstarter, but it doesn't have to be necessarily from Kickstarter. But the idea is the same. We're going to give you a alpha build of a game and some text. Steam Greenlight is horrible because there's no filter system for it, so you can just throw up any shit you want and sell. And you can lie, and there's absolutely, you could put a Photoshop screenshot of, what your game looks like, and it doesn't have to be that. And you can collect a shitload of money before Steam looks into it. They have to get complaint. It's horrible. There's no filter whatsoever. But, see, I'm so fucking babbling about that, I can't even remember what we were talking about. Oh, pre-orders.
Well, I'm talking about pre-order, and I'm just
pre-order
saying
culture is a huge fucking... GameStop runs on pre-order culture.
Now, that I know, and I mean, I don't...
Not only that, the major publishers,
cable.
they do what is done with movies, which is also stupid, which is they think the first week or two of the box office is what matters. So if you go see a movie a month later, they don't give a fuck.
They don't care.
Which is, again, it's a product. It reinforces the idea that it's a product. But video games work the exact same way, and pre-orders are a huge part of that. So when games don't get a lot of pre-orders, EA goes, well, BioWare, you've outlived your usefulness, and then they cut their throat. This is basically what happened with Dungeon Keeper, which...
So that's what I'm saying. So you're saying...
Jesus fuck.
So the argument kind of started because you're saying the medium isn't, art. And I know what you're trying to say, but I'm saying, even with film, with all the, stuff that comes out, people are still working with it as an art form.
Yes.
And there are still always going to be films you can go see that do interesting things with, writing or, cinematography, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm saying, and we have the same thing. We have, for every fucking Call of Duty, Ghosts, Warfare, Future Black, Ops,
yeah.
You have, Gone Home or, Transistor, whether you liked it or not. And
I didn't play it.
No, I know.
That
was mostly for one person.
You're calling out my wife.
I didn't like the ending.
How
I did like the game.
dare you?
I like your wife. She's fun.
That makes one of us. Oh! That's okay. She doesn't listen to this. That was a high five.
it peaked too, so that's perfect.
Oh, that's loud.
No, so all I'm saying is, so you do have these things that people are, they are working with it as an art form, I think.
Yes.
But you don't consider it.
Let me clarify my point. It's all about the system that's in place, right? So with film, there is a lot of films coming out, and some of them are Transformers 4. that's never going to go away. I would never judge a medium by the amount of purity in it. You know what I mean? I did finger quotes there. Like, it's not like you made Transformers 4, this medium is invalid. That would be a Roger Ebert statement about video games. Of course not. Why would I pay to see
didn't you go
shit?
see Transformers 2 or something like that?
Yes.
So
Let me explain Transformers 2 before I get back to my point. Just real quick. I know you have a face like you want to say something, but let me set the record straight. Between me, Travis, and Brian Roper, someone floated the idea that we should see it on its opening release night. And maybe it was an ironic statement, or maybe there was a kernel of longing in it. However, I will not throw any of the three of us under the bus, because I think it was a collective, like, everyone had 30% enthusiasm, and that was enough to get us there.
Just push it.
And then, because the theater was so packed, we didn't sit next to each other, so we didn't realize all three of us wanted to leave within the first 5 minutes. So I basically sat through a 2.5-hour waterboarding, which is one of the first movies that I actually thought was legitimately offensive to me. Like, my line is so hard to hit. But, like, if you do egregious things to Jews, and it's not for any purpose, it's just murder porn, that bothers me, because my adoptive grandfather was a Jew.
How often does that happen?
Not often at all, is my point. You can make a joke here about why. But the other thing that I can't stand is watching soldiers die gratuitously. And my problem...
Did that happen in Transformers 2?
It did happen in Transformers 2. And if that's what the movie is about, then fine. You know what I mean? If it's a movie about war. But here's the thing. The tone in Transformers 2 is so fucking psychotically... 1 minute it's joking, and then the next minute it's a sunken battleship, and you just see floating corpses of Marines. And I'm like, my stepbrother was a Marine on a Navy boat. Like... The idea that his death could be something that is not a plot point, it's just something they threw in your face. I just found it gross. Yeah. And it wasn't like, how dare you, Michael Bay? I'm going to pick at your work. I ended up watching Pain and Gain like a month ago, and I thought it was fucking hilarious.
You thought it was hilarious?
It was hilarious. Mark Wahlberg is the best.
Because I thought that movie was dog shit.
It was dog shit.
Okay.
Michael Bay is dog shit. Some people love him.
I was watching that movie thinking, like, with the kind of budgets Michael Bay has, I've never seen the Transformers films,
you're missing a cinematic treasure.
Pain and Gain was so weird to watch because I was like, it was one of those films where I thought like this had to go through so many processes where people were like, good scene, cut it.
Yeah.
Put it on.
No,
someone watched the entire film. Perfect. Let's put it in post.
That person's name is Michael Bay.
But it's just insanity. It's so stupid.
Yes, that's what's funny about it. Here's what I love. Here's what I love about Mark Wahlberg, and it's like the other things that we've mentioned before.
I don't know.
Let me explain what I like about him, and this is going to come back when we talk about Wolfenstein. He is so earnest in every role that he plays that when a movie knows how to use that to its advantage, it's a good movie. I loved him in Boogie Nights. I loved the movie Boogie Nights because it's fucking hilarious. I loved him in Pain and Gain because he has a face that looks like I'm being so truthful right now. That's the only character he can do is someone who really feels what he's saying. So when you put him in a scene where he really feels what he's saying, and what he's saying is, you have to cut off and grill their hands, bro. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point.
I mean, between him and The Rock, the movie is a ridiculous mess, but I just loved watching those two be as silly as they were, and that was enough for me.
Well, and even, I think he's underrated.
It doesn't need to be a 10.
Even Anthony Mackie, I thought.
I've never disliked him either.
I mean, I'll give you that, because it is insanity, and they are totally committed to their roles, and they're just like...
I can like portions of a thing, while 70% of it is like, no, I'd throw that bit away. Yeah, I feel like that's what was about Pain and Gain.
Otherwise, I just thought it was so fucking stupid.
but to jump all the way back to the point I was making before, I'm bringing it around because I'm a radio professional. What I was talking about is in the presentation of movies, there will be Transformers movies. Yes. But the medium is so large and has so many access points that there are movies that are great at all tiers. You could go on YouTube and watch a movie that people made out of their own pocket that will inspire you to want to make your own thing. There are Hollywood movies that you will see, like Goodfellas is a fucking amazing movie. Really anything Scorsese does, a young person could go see that and feel like, I want to be a filmmaker.
Well, especially his
now.
early stuff. I mean, you could do anything he did in his early stuff now with just like a camera.
Absolutely,
it's so easy.
It just becomes
like
easier
Mean
and easier.
Streets or like Raging Bull. Like it's
But my
very
point
simple
stands.
stuff.
You could see watching those movies as like an 8-year-old and going, "Oh my god!" Like I connect to
Watching
this
Mean
thing.
Streets as an 8-year-old.
Yeah, watching Taxi
Harvey
Driver.
Keitel.
Just picture it real quick. You're 6 years old and Taxi Driver comes on for the first time, and that could change you.
Oh God.
But you get my point. You can be inspired by
What's
the
wrong?
medium
I
of
just
film.
thought I'd take you to a movie. What's the matter?
Yeah. But
Oh, God.
there are independent films that you can watch. I mean, there are people our age, younger than us, and slightly older than us that is like the fucking golden area of they make a thing that they feel really passionate about. We can watch that and feel like, wow, I really connected to that thing. I want to make a thing too. That is a thing that is true of film. I don't think that is a thing that is true of video games in the same way. There are people who play video games and go, I want to do the art or whatever, but there's not, I really don't feel like there's people playing video games, by and large, the bulk of the medium, I'm saying.
Okay.
There are outliers. Walking Dead Season 1 is an incredible game. There are a handful of incredible games. The medium itself is fully capable of producing art, but the bulk of the medium's idea of what that art is and should be constrains the entire thing.
But you're just talking about. So you're just saying like the consumer. I'm trying to follow you a little bit because like again to me they seem a little parallel. Like you're talking about. So you're saying most people when they walk into a theater go out, or I mean if it's a good film, go out saying they want to like do something. I think there's a lot of people who play games and they want to make their own games. Like our buddy Andrew is a good example of that.
Of course,
who,
of
you
course.
know, he doesn't even play as many games as we have, but
Uh-huh.
that. Like, the last time I talked to him, he was saying that for him, his end game is video games at this point. Like, that's
Uh-huh.
really what he wants to devote his time and attention
I'm sorry
to.
to hear that.
And, I mean...
Good luck, bro.
I mean, whether, you know, he's studying coding on his own, he's doing stuff. But anyway, but he's going through the motions to be able to do that.
My
you know?
point is the diversity of what you can be inspired to want to create, especially in terms of storytelling, is so limited with gaming. I mean, there are not a ton of people that go, I want to write a game that is about this. Like, there aren't a ton of people that go, I played Alan Wake. It's about, it's about a lot of things, but there's this specific thing about it that I really connect to, and I want to tell my version of that thing and maybe go in this other direction. Video gaming's idea of what should happen largely involves firearms.
Yeah.
That's really small-minded. You're a soldier or a cop or a detective.
Okay, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Or a
in terms of
serial
that
killer.
funnel, yeah, I mean...
Video games should be the most diverse art form, and if you look at it as a whole, it is. Because there's so much shit there are so many games that do weird shit that movies don't do. Like, even movies, unfortunately, because you're the passive observer, are limited in the weirdness it can engage in when you compare it to video games. There's some weird fucking video games out there.
Yeah.
Right? But as a whole, when people think of video games and the people that are driving the culture forward, so to speak, by spending their money on it and being engaged in it, they see guns and killing and violence. And that is the means of communication. And it's limited.
Yeah. No, okay, I understand what you're saying on that point. Yeah.
Of every game that comes, if you look at a year's worth of game releases, what percentage of them would you think has a firearm in it? Not even necessarily you fire it or just has a gun in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There should be so many that
Hey.
don't.
Like 1,000%, I would say.
And fucking medieval games don't count. Weapon. You know what I mean? Dynasty Warriors doesn't have
I'm
guns.
pretty sure those games
okay.
even have guns at some point, right?
Even games that don't need guns find a way to work them in somehow.
Yeah, so, but even they usually have them in some sort of like rudimentary way.
Because that's how
like
the
for
thinking
Skyrim,
is
for example,
formed.
would you count the crossbow?
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. So.
I'm saying violence as a means of communicating with the world
yeah,
that you
yeah.
inhabit. Let's change it from guns to I express myself in this world through violence.
Yeah.
That is
okay.
just about it's every mainstream game with very limited exception.
Yeah.
I mean, how many Katamari Damacies are there? There was the
3.
one. Thank you, literal
Katamari
Lucio.
Damacy, Gone Home.
And by the way,
And,
let me be clear about that. I think that game is dull as shit.
Katamari?
I hate Katamari Damacy.
How can you hate Katamari
Because
Damacy?
it's boring. It's boring to watch. It's boring to play for me.
Okay.
I hold nothing
You
against...
don't like half that game as the soundtrack.
I
So if you're
don't-
not enjoying the music, then yeah, I can understand.
I don't care. It doesn't move me.
It's just so whimsical.
I don't care. But that's the beauty of a varied medium. There's something for everyone.
Yeah.
And in video gaming, I feel like I'm arguing against my own taste here, by the way, which is what people should do, because I love guns and I love violence. I really.
But that's not all you
I
love.
really love
it's
killing
to your
people
point, 'cause
and
that's
watching
not
them die
all you
horribly.
love, right? I mean, so
I love jerking off too.
that's what I'm saying. But that is not all
I'm
you
a varied
do.
person.
You can go outside once in a while and feel the sting of the sun.
6 of one, half dozen of the other, whatever. I go
But
out
you
for
played
supplies.
Gone Home and liked it, and that's the point.
I loved Gone
So that's
Home.
my point. Like, it's not, you don't always need to be saturated by the thing you
No.
like,
I'm a multifaceted person, Lucio. It's not all about the killing for me.
Yes.
There are multiple things that engage me. Violence engages me when it's done well, and when it's done in a very specific fashion. It will always engage me. Part of the reason I loved Wolfenstein was it was violent.
Yeah, that was actually one of the reasons I loved it too.
And
it's,
it was
it's unlike
unflinchingly
It's
violent.
unlike most games I play because it felt very straightforward to me.
Yeah.
It was.
There was a purity in...
It's kind of like what I think the reason you said you like Captain America. You've said like, I don't need him to be too complicated. He just kind of needs to be a nice guy. And
Yeah.
and it works, especially when you have an actor like Chris Evans who just does the role.
He's
really,
really
well.
strong at doing that particular thing, and
Yeah.
I find that thing gratifying.
And
I
so
don't need everything to be
And
that.
so that's what I'm saying with Wolfenstein. It's the same way. Like there are very few kind of games like Wolfenstein that I enjoy. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's just like hyper manly and just kind of like a little over the top. And,
I
like,
don't even
kind of
know
a
that
little
it's... I mean,
unhinged.
it's definitely hyper manly, but that's not what appealed to me about
I'm not
it.
saying that appeal. I'm saying that at the surface level at least, that's kind of what's going on with the game.
It's Mark
But
Wahlberg.
yeah.
It's
It's
got
earnest,
this pure.
yes.
It's got this earnest purity of expression. It really hates Nazis as much as you do, and it really wants to go. You could kill all these
You could
Nazis.
kill all the Nazis.
They're so bad.
Yeah.
Don't you want to kill them?
And it's not. I mean,
It's not like lazy, like let's just throw in Nazis because everyone can agree they're bad. It's really thrilled to be killing all
and
these
that's kind of
Nazis.
what drives the because it's the kind of game where you want to go in and be like you kind of want to be as vicious as you can in most of the cases. Like either you're doing stealth and you just want to take people out, or they're it forces your hand and you kind of have to go loud. And in that instance, it helps because you're fighting Nazis, so it's like fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Like let's just double guns. Why the hell not?
It's like I said, it's Stiglitz the game. I mean,
Yeah.
what's his name? Who directed Hostel? You remember them?
Eli Roth.
Eli Roth when he's shooting Hitler's face,
Yes.
which is my favorite scene of any film I've ever seen, bar none. That 3-second clip of him just with rage tearing Hitler's face off because it's real.
Yeah.
Like you're seeing real emotion, really.
Well, it's
But
like,
this game is like trying to
it's like rage,
chase
anger,
that.
happiness because he's got the most psychotic.
It's
smile,
just
as I recall.
there's no joy in it. It's pure, unadulterated, white hot rage. There's nothing else in here. It is only napalm fire rage. He's not gonna feel sad later. He's not gonna feel happy later. He's not going to feel anything later because he's got a bomb around his ankle and he's in a building that's burning down. But even if he somehow escaped, that moment, the moment he's in that moment, he could never revisit again, even if he survived. Even if he lived to be 80 years old, he could reflect on it and feel a spark of it. But in that perfect, beautiful, diamond moment, there's a rage you can only achieve organically. And that is what Wolfenstein tried to capture for as long as possible.
I think so, yeah.
Because your character hates Nazis more than you could unless you survived World War II personally.
Yeah.
I mean, when he talks about, and he doesn't always, but when he muses to himself, you're like, I am playing a character that is out of his mind angry against Nazis.
Yes, he is.
Like, there's no... And I love that they weren't afraid to go there. You're playing a character that is not... They're not trying to be relatable, like, this guy's you. He's an everyman. He is not
No, he's
an
not.
everyman.
He's psychotic.
You're riding him like a comet. Like, you're
Yeah.
seeing his rage and going, let's see where I can take this.
Yeah.
Or where he's going to take me with it. You know? And there's something... It never stopped being cathartic, shooting Nazis to pieces. In the end, I'm, like, double-gunning, screaming motherfucker at my screen while just limbs are flying off. And I'm like, this is some real shit.
Heads are exploding.
You know? And I think that there's something valuable about that in that gaming can pull that out of a person. That is one thing that can be pulled out of you as a gamer, but they went all in with it, and I appreciate the shit out of that. I also had the same exact feeling in a completely different way from Gone Home. You know, I hope this turns out okay. I care about the lives and well-being of other people that don't do, like, you know, the story is about a teenage girl, basically. I mean, not the story that you're playing. You're just playing the person that came home. The story
you're trying to put together, yeah.
But the story you're putting together is about a teenage girl who's done nothing wrong. She's just a teenager who has some horrible life choices in front of her that are not horrible in the same way that they are in Wolfenstein. They're horrible in a way that is real to our lives. You know what I mean? They're mundane, but awful. You know, like the... You know... One, I don't want to spoil it because I really think people should play that game and appreciate it organically. So I'll just say, in very broad terms, when you find yourself in a young love situation that is tenuous at best, but there is something real there, you know, there's a part of me that pulls for that just because I'm a romantic. You know what I mean? The same part of me that feels bliss at tearing a Nazi's head off because of what they are, their inhumanity, and that's Nazis as inhumanity. That's even a multifaceted thing too.
Well, yeah.
You know, if you get into what actually happened in fucking
But the
World
game
War
didn't
II.
need to. I mean,
no,
especially
and it did not serve the game to go there at all.
No,
it served the game to be just as black and white as possible.
Yeah.
But
that was actually the only point. Just real quick, that was the only part of the game I felt faltered a little bit. Was the scene with Jay. It felt like they fumbled just a bit with the tone.
The scene with Jay.
Jay. I'm assuming he's supposed to be Jimi Hendrix or something in an alternate timeline.
I don't know who that is because I picked the other timeline and I didn't have a character named Jay.
Really? Who played guitar and had a...
No.
Really? They went that far with it? That's interesting.
Yeah, no.
Well, I got the Wyatt timeline, and in the Wyatt timeline, one of the guys in your little resistance group is just named Jay, but he plays right-handed guitars, lefty, and, you know... His final scene is he's playing the Star Spangled Banner with, you know, electrically. I don't know that if in
that's
the
the problem
timeline...
with earnestness is sometimes it's dumb.
Well, anyway, I mean, I liked the character. I thought that was kind of cute. And there is a record you can find that's like, you know, supposed to be the Beatles, but if they had to perform in German,
no.
So I just assumed like, okay, so this is probably just Jimi Hendrix because he was in London at that time, and you know. So maybe he got stuck over there during the war. I have no idea, but
sure.
So the only way time it faltered in that timeline. So I don't know what it was like for the other one. Is what's his name? BJ Blazkowicz is having a conversation with him, and he's basically talking about like, you know, pre-1960s civil rights era, and I mean that probably never happened in this world.
No.
He's talking about back
war
home.
ended in 1946.
Yeah,
the wrong way.
He's talking about back home in the U.S. and he says like, you know, you guys were the Nazis, and you know he gets all offended like, you know, like how dare you say that to me? And
sure,
it sort of de-escalates with them doing LSD together, and I guess Blazkowicz can play guitar, but it falters in the sense that like they were just so, you know, on board with it, and introducing that element seemed a little unnecessary. Like you could make that political statement, but it kind of like the reason we're talking about you shouldn't just explore like, you know, the multifaceted aspect of Nazis. Like that didn't help the game.
No,
because it's like it just kind of you trip for a minute and
Yeah.
then it goes back to what it's doing. But I was like, because they didn't go anywhere with it. He makes that statement. You know, Blazkowicz gets mad, and then they make up. And he says, like, that wasn't the America I was fighting for, you know, like that kind of thing.
But it was. And that's the problem.
Yeah, and I mean, that's
you know,
that's the only place it tripped up.
In
for
World
me.
War II,
That's
blacks
so
were
weird
segregated
that they took that
completely.
out of the other timeline. I kind of makes me want to play the other one now, because maybe the story was different enough.
I don't know. It's probably not that.
Who was in
different.
your little resistance group?
I don't remember the names now. I don't.
Not names, I just mean like
I
what
commit
kind
these
of
things to memory.
characters.
All kinds of characters.
Because like I'm just.
That's
like,
one of the things I liked about it was your resistance base became the most depressing Benetton ad ever. Because it's just people of all races and creeds looking sad.
Did you at least have Max?
Max is
Max Haas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's there. Yeah.
He goes berserk at the end. Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course he does. Because what's his face gets killed.
Yeah.
His,
Spoiler alert.
surrogate father.
Spoiler alert.
It's not really a spoiler.
Yes,
The game-
that's the
you think
definition
so?
of a spoiler. A character dies
From
in the
the
end.
minute, okay, but from the minute that the whatever jolly old boy drops you off in front of the.
Listen,
the
people are going to
building.
die. I'm not saying you couldn't
It
see
became
it coming.
pretty clear to me, like, okay, people are going to start dying.
Yeah, no, of course.
He says, like, make this count, and then just drives into a building and explodes.
Yeah. That by the way, I love how unexpected that was.
Yeah, that was great. He just drops you off.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's why he was... And it's this stupid little statement, like, I'm only going to do this once.
Yeah.
Well, no shit, because you're fucking dead.
But when he said that, you didn't realize
I
that's
know,
what
that's
he
what
meant.
I'm saying. I loved it.
You thought he was
like,
just cunty because it was a long drive.
Yeah.
16-hour drive. I'm not doing it again. Because I'm going to kill myself.
I'm going to blow up a whole building.
Maybe you should have told me before you did it so I could have stood back a little bit further. Because the statue, I would have loved the game even more if the statue killed you in hour 2 of the game.
That's it.
It was just game over. I also love that he's in a 14-year coma, and it's his pure hot rage against the Nazis that brings him out of it.
Yeah.
Like, he rehabilitates himself through murder.
Yes.
Yeah, through murder hatred. And it's not like the bride in Kill Bill where he's got to sit in the back of the truck and wiggle his toe.
He just gets up.
He just one day he stands up and he goes, "No, fuck these Nazis."
These guys. Oh,
it's
man.
a wonderful game.
It's a really great game.
But back to my point before we got off on that tangent. Gone Home really satisfied my want for people to, even if they don't have the wisdom, because teenagers don't have wisdom, to make a choice that ultimately, in the end, will make their lives better. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Especially because the character's a teenager, there's a bunch of ways that could have gone, which would have just bummed the shit out of me.
Well, it's also unknown, because that's
of
part
course
of
it's
that's
unknown.
part of what it is, because we don't. Maybe her life will be, but we don't know, and
But-
the odds are it won't. Like that's
Yeah.
If
But
you look at
it's the unknown as a beautiful thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
In the same way that the ending for The Walking Dead Season 1 was powerful because it's unknown. This was, I think, beautiful because it's unknown. Because maybe they won't stay together.
Wait, you're saying Walking Dead Season 1 was not beautiful?
No, I'm not in the same way.
No, I wouldn't say it the same way, but I would say
it was bittersweet. It was a different kind of
so
beauty.
Glorious, though.
But I mean, this Gone Home was more hopeful. Like maybe they won't end up together. Maybe something will happen. Maybe they'll drift apart. Those are all things that could happen in anyone's life. But at this point in time, the chance that they both could be happy as people is still open because they were brave enough to pursue it.
Especially
and that is a good message to have. There's a part of my mind that could see them, as like, in Nevada or something by the side of the road, and they have a fruit stand, and they're just two
they're
people,
just happy.
And they've been together for 48 years. And they're like, oh, that's a really touching story. Like, wow, good for you guys.
They made it.
The fact that is possible makes me happy, because that's how I prefer to imagine that it will go.
Yeah.
But, there are a lot of clues there that both characters want to be emotionally available for one another, which is, in my opinion, the recipe for success in a relationship.
I would think, yeah.
Is that, this is how I feel, and the ability to say how you feel.
And to act on it.
And they went through this so teenager-ish arc, especially towards the end.
Yeah.
Like, the way that they get to that point is so what teenagers are. But that's, also the turning point to that's how they're going to be as adults. You know what I mean? Like, that is the leap into adulthood, and it's an awkward one, but it's a forward one, too.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But that's the beauty of games, is I can love these two games equally. I don't love them equally. I think Gone Home I love a lot more.
I love it more, yeah.
But I love them both, and they couldn't be more different from one another.
Yeah.
Now,
I would say the same thing about film, too, But...
Exactly. But I would not say the same thing about mainstream gaming, because Gone Home is not a mainstream game.
Yeah, okay.
And by and large, mainstream gaming is shoot them, also you're white.
And, yeah.
I mean, Call of Duty Ghosts, we were going to do a podcast about this. I just want to do a little behind the scenes here before we move on. I wanted Lucio to play Call of Duty Ghosts so we could talk about it, because I think, before I played Bioshock, this is going to be a spoiler for my opinion, before I played Bioshock, I thought Call of Duty Ghosts was one of the most racist games I'd ever played, and it still is. But I wanted Lucio to play it so that we could talk about it, because I was astounded at how racist that game was. The thrust of that game is literally, you are the last great white hope. There's the white resistance group, and they're fighting against the evil brown army. I couldn't say it more clearly than that. All of South America has mutually decided, you know what the world's problem is? Those white freedom havers upstairs. And they all band together. All of these countries formed together to form one army with the goal of wiping out America. But what they're not saying is wiping out white people, because when you look at the groups, one group is only brown people, and one group is only white people.
Brown people on the American
There's one black guy that I saw in 8 hours of playing that game before I said, fuck this game. And let me tell you another thing about the glorious white people that are just fighting to preserve their legacy, which is something that comes up. They all wear hoods to conceal their identities. Now, that might sound
a little bit.
That might sound familiar to you. You know, a small group of white people that have these beliefs and views of their own nobility and want to fight back against this unjust world that's closing in around them that they can no longer control. I know that sounds familiar. Maybe you could put your finger on it.
But you're sure not exaggerating, like, as far as the intention a little bit? Like,
we'll do a podcast on it.
Okay. I will play the game. I don't know how. I mean, I guess I'd have
play
to
it on Felicia's computer, because I'm not letting you buy that game.
Oh, I was thinking more like I could rent it or something.
I'm not going to let you spend money playing that game. Absolutely not. It's not even in the cards.
Alright. Well...
And don't worry, you won't have to play the whole thing. You'll get about 30 minutes in before you go, am I really sicking a German Shepherd on another brown person? Like, how thinly veiled is this metaphor going to get?
You really think the people who made that game are like white supremacists?
No,
like...
I don't. I think the people who made that game are so unaware of what they're saying, because that's how disconnected from being a statement that game is. Okay. That game is thrown together from other Call of Duties. There are moments and scenes that are literally taken from other Call of Duties. The opening scene, you get injured and get carried away by two people over to like a house or a vehicle, and the animations are identical to when Soap gets carried to the helicopter in Modern Warfare 2.
Okay.
I mean identical, and I've seen a video clip. It's the same.
Or it's like the animation.
The animation is completely the same.
Oh, God.
They just slapped a game together real quick, and they went, I don't know what we can make this about. Someone spitball, and someone in the back said, Mexicans! And then they never talked about it again. And because gaming development is primarily guys who are 1.5 to 2 times our age and white, no one thought, isn't this game we're making kind of crazy racist if you think about it as a metaphor? No one said that.
Yeah.
Because if they started looking at it that way, we would not have played the game. I don't think they're racist. I think there's ignorance.
Yeah.
And I think that's a hugely important distinction. We live in an era right now where we like to hang both people for, like, as though they committed the same crime, but I think there's a huge difference between intent and not intent.
Yeah.
And we need to make that distinction. So no, I do not think the people who made Call of Duty Ghosts are racist. Absolutely not. I think they're idiots.
Okay.
And I think they made a thing that is really easy for racists to attach to and go, yeah, man, this game's telling the truth.
Oh, shit.
It's really disappointing.
Oh, boy. That's rough.
Say, speaking of racism, I played a game recently.
I think you told me about this game. I played it a while ago.
It's a game called Bioshock Infinite. I want to talk a little about this game.
Before Titanfall, that was the last game I paid almost full price for.
I'm sorry to hear that. I paid $5 for it, and that was $5 too many.
Yeah.
So if that doesn't spoil my opinion, let me just say, I think Bioshock Infinite is the perfect story in terms of what happened to the company that made it. They spent way too much...
You draw a lot of metaphorical ideas out of that, don't you?
That's like where my mind goes.
Mass Effect 3 being a giant metaphor for
I think how you make a game is a huge part of the game's story, and I don't think the people making it
No, I think that's relevant. It's just funny because that's not necessarily the first thing I think about, but...
Yeah. Well, it is now since Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3 was where my love of being a gamer, of the label being a gamer, and my passion for the medium died in a major way. Like, I've not had the same level of enthusiasm for games since. My expectation went... I went from being an optimist to being a giant pessimist.
I wouldn't say giant pessimist, but Bioshock Infinite was that moment for me. Because talking about pre-orders, I pre-ordered Bioshock 2 like the special edition.
We've
with,
talked
like, all
about
stuff.
that game on this podcast.
And yeah, I know.
We all liked it,
and I liked it a lot. I still love it. Like,
and it
it's
has
a different
problems.
game than the first one. It was definitely flawed. I mean, most of the great games I love are flawed,
of course,
especially the older ones.
Oh yeah, Alan Wake has the worst controls of any game. Fuck Alan Wake's controls. I love that game. Like, I feel like that game was written to speak to me. Like, that's what I feel when I play that game.
I had the
like,
same experience.
does Sam Lake know me?
He's so great.
And the controls are shit.
Yeah.
But it's okay. The spirit of the game is what matters.
The spirit of the game is really important.
The spirit of Bioshock 2 is brilliant. The spirit of Bioshock Infinite, they never got around to putting it in.
Yeah.
There is no spirit to that game.
I don't know what they were... I don't want to say what they were thinking. I want to say I don't know what was driving them at that point.
I'll tell you.
Because Bioshock, the first one, clearly had, like Andrew Ryan as far as a character and a metaphor, whatever's going on. Like, he was brilliant, I thought. I mean, I don't know if you disagree, but...
I will say this about Bioshock 1, looking back on it. I think that Bioshock 1 has the same problems that Bioshock Infinite has, but it has them to a lesser degree, and we had a lower set of expectations for it. Because when Bioshock comes out, Bioshock is its own original property. We've never seen a Bioshock game before.
So in
yes,
hindsight, you don't really...
Let me explain.
No, I'm just curious about where you're at.
But let me go through my thought process, and that
sure.
will clarify it, hopefully. I had this discussion with Felicia also. Bioshock 1 is really just System Shock, but underwater with objectivism. They know the format of game they want to tell. They have it separated into 3 categories, right? The format of the game, the theme of the game, like the set dressing, which in this case is objectivism, and then what they're trying to say with the game, like there's some kind of twist. And Bioshock 1's huge problem is the twist was much smarter than everything in the game. And the twist, the game should have ended at the twist, in my opinion, because everything after the twist is just you're going downhill. However, and here's...
Okay, yeah, finish.
So, Bioshock is just, like I said, it's just System Shock, but instead of in space, it's underwater. Mm-hmm. It's the same idea of you're just trolling around this fucking exploded shitty place. And objectivism is the thing that is ostensibly what is presented to you as, like, we have opinions on objectivism. Mm-hmm. But, like, and maybe I'm not remembering the era properly, but I don't remember objectivism being exceptionally relevant when Bioshock came out. So it wasn't like this game was made to make a statement about the times.
It didn't feel relevant about the times. To me, it just felt like a really good story about that subject. And that was what I enjoyed about it.
And especially for our age group, it was making a statement about a thing that we did not know about until we played Bioshock. Like, I didn't know shit about objectivism or Ayn Rand until I played Bioshock, and then I was like, wow, this is really interesting. I want to see, like, because it's clearly a critique of objectivism, which is not a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
But it made me interested to see, like, it came from Ayn Rand. What is this objectivist thing? And then I read 17 maybe pages of Atlas Shrugged, and I went, fuck Ayn Rand. She's so bad.
I like Bioshock way more than I like Ayn Rand.
Everyone likes Bioshock more. Ayn Rand likes Bioshock more than she likes herself.
No, I mean, as far as the twist, I liked that it was kind of more closer to the middle of the story. I would agree that everything that came after was more straightforward. Like, it's kind of like, well, now that these are the circumstances, it's just about, we got to kind of wrap everything up. And
normally speaking, when you blow your load of the twist that the game is really about, the twist is not so giant. And let me explain what I mean by giant. Because...
Because I will say that I liked, because to me, when the twist comes at the very end, which is pretty much formulaic at this point, and everything just kind of quickly wraps up. I mean, that's fine, but I liked that you had your twist moment, and then it felt like a longer. I wish I could think of a better word, but denouement, in the classic Shakespearean sense, where the height of action in Shakespeare, for example, and I'm not saying that the people who made Bioshock are Shakespeare, but
no one would accuse you of saying that.
But I'm just saying, but I like that, the most exciting climactic moment is usually roughly around the center, and that things kind of then taper and build towards something else, which is not as big. So I liked that part of it.
I would agree with you, and I tend to like the tapering point. I mean, if you look at Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back is that, and Return of the Jedi is the follow-up.
Yeah.
I actually like Return of the Jedi more than I like Empire Strikes Back, which is a really unpopular opinion. And for a while I was cyberbullied into going, Empire is a better film. And Empire is a great film, but I like Return of the Jedi only because, as a writer, this is my own fucking thing. I like resolution. And
No, I would
Return
agree
of the
with
Jedi
you.
is only about resolution.
I think that Return of the Jedi, I like Empire better. I think Return of the Jedi is not as bad as some people would say. I mean, I don't know if people say it's bad, but I know people definitely say, like, well, after Empire is so disappointing. And to me, that's not it. It wraps up really well. And it brings everything full circle, especially with the characters and their arcs.
I like
and everything
that.
going on. I enjoy that too. That's why, to me, Return of the Jedi is a solid movie.
Darth Vader was the closest to a person in Return of the Jedi. He was just the antagonist for 1 and 2.
I would agree with that.
Although
with.
But let's not get into Star Wars.
Okay,
That's not even what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I was just making a point. And my point is that I generally agree with you. The middle point is is a great flashpoint for storytelling. It doesn't always have to be that way, but it works. We've seen it work before. Here's the problem with Bioshock's twist.
So just really quick. So my point is when the twist comes at the end, for me it feels like it's easier, or you're in more danger of making a twist feel like a hack moment or kind of like a gimmick. When things just kind of like almost like you're saying, we appreciate resolution. And
everything
kind of
depends on execution.
So if you have a twist and things just end, it feels more like, well, that's it. That's all I got.
Well, let me counter that with Bioshock 2 is like basically ends with the twist, and that's what I liked about it.
You thought so?
Yes, you find out that all of the actions you've been doing have been teaching a child how to live, or like you've been teaching a child morality through how you live. To me,
that didn't feel like a twist.
But it was a twist, because you did not expect that. That's what made the game gratifying also. She went from a character that was just there, that you're just on a generic, I want to rescue her, I don't know anything about her, to literally, it's a metaphor for raising your child.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the same
And before
spirit as
Walking Dead, that was powerful.
Yeah.
Walking Dead did it 1,000 times better, but that's what that game was only about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That takes nothing away from Bioshock 2. Here's the problem with Bioshock 1. The twist was great for the game, but it was too good a twist because it actually applied to the entire medium of gaming. Like, they were trying to just blow your minds with you're not really in control, but what they did instead was go, no character has agency in reality.
Yeah.
When you play a video game, the protagonist is your slave.
I thought that was pretty clearly the point of that twist.
Yes,
you felt like that was unintentional?
I don't think it was. I don't think they intended that to be as effective as it was. I think that they thought...
Because to me, what made it so effective is I thought that was the point. They were playing with the perception of your role as the gamer and your...
Yes, but they were seeing it as in the box of that game. I legitimately don't think they were seeing... they were thinking... We are going to change how people think about games.
So you don't think they were thinking like Stanley Parable
going
kind of
forward. I never played the Stanley Parable.
Oh, okay. Stanley Parable is all about that, kind of like agency. Anyway, that's
right.
all other thing. You should play it. It's fun.
I might.
It's not like over the top. It's just. I mean, it is. It might not be your sense of humor, but it's interesting.
I find that my statements need to be more subversive. Like,
no,
I need to.
That's
I
what I
can't
was
be
gonna
playing
say,
a game that the premise of the game is we're going to say a thing about gaming. You know what I mean? I like that it came out of left field in Bioshock because it's like it's one of those my whole life as a gamer is a lie moments.
Yeah,
like when that happened,
especially because he's literally been saying to you the whole time, "Would you kindly?" And it's just you weren't even thinking about it. You're just like, "Oh, he talks funny."
But that's what they were thinking about when they made that game. Is like you're gonna realize you've been being fucked with the whole time. But instead, what happened is I realized as a gamer, I've been playing out a slave story.
Yeah, every time
about characters that live in a cage. Games are a cage.
Yeah,
and the path is the cage too. Everything about playing a video game, the closer it's like the Uncanny Valley, but with freedom. The closer you get to feeling like you're experiencing something, the more horrifying it is to realize this is a sham.
Yeah.
The character I'm playing cannot make decisions for themselves, and in fact would not exist unless I, as a person in the market, had money to spend on their existence being... Imagine if you found out you were born just to entertain an entity that you've never seen, and also everything you've ever done was not your choice.
Yeah.
And that was never going to be different. It's horrifying. It's Twilight Zone shit.
I mean, that's
and I don't think they thought that's what the effect was going to be. But that's what the effect was on me as a kid.
No, me too. That's why I'm saying I thought that was the point.
This might have fucked up gaming for me. Like it was a little too real.
I really thought that was the point, because I felt that way, you felt that. I mean, again, going back to that conversation about the kind of people I talk to who play video games, maybe I'm giving gamers, you can't see my fingers, too much credit to assume that everyone felt this way when they...
No, I think everyone did feel that way, and I think that's exactly why Bioshock Infinite is a terrible game.
Yeah.
Because the people who made Bioshock saw how people reacted to Bioshock 1, and Bioshock
but
Infinite...
only the internal twist, not the giant...
No, everything. Everything.
No, I'm saying...
Because Bioshock is such a celebrated game, so when it's your turn...
But I'm saying with Bioshock Infinite, I don't think they were trying to replicate such a profound sort of... Like the twist doesn't extend any further in Bioshock Infinite.
Let me explain my point.
Go.
When that happened, Bioshock Infinite should be called Bioshock Legacy, because just like Jack in Bioshock 1 is literally trapped by other people's machinations, the creators of Bioshock Infinite are trapped by the expectations of their because Bioshock 2 wasn't made by them. That was like a quickie one-off game that happened to be good. But this was like their chance at readdressing the fucking thing that they made. And it shows in every... Bioshock Infinite is identical to Bioshock 1 in that it has setting, theme, and then twisty message. And those three things are completely separated from one another. The setting is just where the game takes place, and there's the art department applied their love, but the writing department really had no interest in it whatsoever. That is why Bioshock Infinite immediately feels like a Disney theme park, but filled with zero patrons. You feel like you are the only... Like, imagine if you went to Disneyland and everyone there, including the crowd, was hired by Disney to stand there. And they don't say anything to each other until you get within 6 feet of them, and then they say their dialogue and then go back to doing nothing. You're like in a wax museum. Columbia, from the beginning, never felt like a real place. It was a abject failure of a fucking game in that regard.
It never, yeah.
I never felt like Columbia was a place that could exist. It was not alive. It had zero personality. The art department went nuts with it. It's a beautiful, shallow, empty place. It is Disneyland if everyone worked at Disneyland.
And I never felt like I was in the sky. I mean, maybe you're not supposed to.
There's that too.
Maybe you're not supposed to, but you just forget. And I don't know, like I said, if that's the point.
No, it goes back to Bioshock games have 3 elements, and the writers only think about one, and the rest is just frosting as a distraction. It's like the Prestige. There are things that are there to take your attention, no. But the mechanism of how it actually works, all of that shit there is to distract your attention away from the true mechanism. This game only wanted to talk about time travel and the idea of legacy, and I think that's self-reflective of their own legacy of game. When you have to make a sequel to a game that is like lauded as one of the greatest of all time, and it's still within the era of its making, it's not like, you know what I mean? It's not like it came out 20 years ago and we're looking back on it going, that was a cornerstone game. They were talking about Bioshock like it was something like that, or like 2005, 2006, around that time.
No, 2005 we graduated. It came out like...
I don't know, but the point is, within the year it came out, people were already talking about it like it was one of the most important things that ever happened. Yeah. So when your job is to follow that up, it was exactly like when we made the conference. You remember what the conference was about? It was about, what do we make a 5-minute video about? And the conference was a video that we made to for the Berkeley Film Festival.
That's for our campus fest, yeah.
Yeah, and the goal is just make a 5-minute film about anything, and no one had any idea what we should make the movie about, so we said, why don't we make the movie about what we should make the movie about? That is what Bioshock Infinite is about. Except instead of what do we make the movie about, it's what do we make of the legacy that we've achieved too quickly? You know, because Bioshock has all of this shit hanging on it. It's like a fucking, this golden albatross around its neck. So it's like, well, what if we make the game about, like, everything? You know, like we have to top it in a way that is mind-blowing, but how do you top Maybe You're a Slave? Except that, like, you go Twilight Zone-esque of, like, what if everything is happening? Like, then what matters?
I have to admit, I'm a little... Are you defending the game? Or are you...
No, it's a horrible game.
So because, like,
I'm telling you what they think the game is about. And
okay.
That's what
I was trying to follow
took
because I was
from
like,
the game.
I didn't get any of that.
And then we
like,
went, okay, like...
To me, it felt
they
so
settled
shallow
on,
and... Like,
yes. Let me explain why.
Uh-huh.
Because Bioshock 1 is just as shallow, we just didn't care. And the subject matter was interesting. Objectivism was more interesting. You know what I mean? It wasn't great. It wasn't smarter. It was just more interesting. They came up with, what is this game about? It's about the infinite portal shit, and there's always a lighthouse and a guy, or I can't even remember the fucking line. I'm not going to commit that line to memory. I understand that they wanted that line to be meaningful, but it wasn't meaningful when I heard it, and I'm not going to memorize it just so I can quote it. It's not a smart game. But they decided upon that mechanism first, and then they went, okay, what's the story about? We can't think of that. Let's make a setting, and then we'll go from there. So they go, what is the opposite of an underwater city? A floating city in the sky. See? It's different. Then they go, well, what do we fill the city with? I don't know. And again, like Call of Duty Ghosts, I think someone threw out, like, let's do turn of the century things and racism. But here's the thing about Bioshock Infinite. It has nothing to do with racism whatsoever. They're literally using racism as a set dressing.
It had nothing to do with the game.
It has no message in the game. The game is...
I mean, that was one of the things that pissed me off. Like, we're talking about resolutions. It's just a fucking red herring. There's nothing there.
Yes,
like,
racism is literally a red herring. It's not what the game is about.
You hear about this character, fucking, what's her name?
Daisy Fitzroy.
Daisy Fitzroy, and you never see her for, like, the first half of the game, but she's, like, an enigma to everyone. It's like, oh, who's Daisy Fitzroy? And she's, like, fucking no one. It doesn't matter by the end.
No. Everyone is no one in that game. That whole game is a vehicle to get... They only wrote a plot twist. And everything else in that game... Because if you go back and think about that game, every single thing you do is just a delaying tactic to make the story longer.
No, it is. There's nothing...
You know? Our Zeppelin... This is the perfect analogy. Okay? I'm kissing my own ass before I've even given it. But this is what I thought as I was playing it. This is when I realized this game is not about anything that's happening right now. They're just trying to pad the running time out until they get... Because they can't make the game 5 minutes long. And they didn't have a legitimate story. They just had elements that they threw out there to see what would stick. But the game is not about racism. It's not about... So, you're on the Zeppelin, right? And the girl you're with goes, those aren't the coordinates to Paris. That's the coordinates to New York. You're taking her away from Colombia.
Right. Yeah.
And ostensibly you're taking her to Paris, which she's always wanted to see. But actually you're taking her to New York to give her to the bosses that turn out to not exist. Spoiler alert. But she hits you with a wrench, and somehow you don't die, even though you would have horrible fucking brain trauma. If you were knocked out for so long that the ship was inhabited by a group of people by the time you woke up, you'd be going for the rest of the game. But that doesn't happen.
I don't like...
Yeah, you'd be talking like Edgar. I don't like our ships. But you wake up and Daisy Fitzroy's there. Now, you've never met Daisy Fitzroy up to this point. And the whole backstory with Daisy Fitzroy is she was the black maid of Comstock who runs Columbia. He's the opposite of Andrew Ryan because it's all religious shit, not practical shit. Because everything in the game is just being a mirror version because they're making a statement about Bioshock and the legacy of Bioshock, right? So everything is sideways. Anyway... The primary antagonist is a person who has no power, Daisy Fitzroy, as opposed to Atlas, who had too much power and became a threat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The struggle is a mirror version of the old struggle. Are you with me so far?
Yeah. No, I mean,
So Daisy Fitzroy decides it's her Zeppelin now, because fuck you, I guess, and you get thrown off. Yeah. And at this point, you're looking for, what's her name? I can't remember anyone's name in this game. Sure, Elizabeth. Anna Denton. Or Anna DeWitt, Anna Denton.
It's funny. I don't know voice actors, so it's always funny when you throw those out.
I just say Troy Baker.
There you go.
Troy Baker.
Troy.
So Troy Baker's trying to look for the girl who's not the one from The Last of Us, but the other girl in the game, where you have a companion that is just there to throw you things. Anyway, so you go looking for her, you find her, and it's like, okay, you had the Zeppelin and you were leaving, but now they've given you a contrived reason for not having it anymore. Because the game would have just been over. It was about to be over.
Yeah.
They could have had an 8-hour Zeppelin ride where they talked about it. And like, well, we'll figure it out. That doesn't happen because that's not what this game is about.
That might have actually been interesting.
This game is about getting to the time travel plot twist.
Yeah.
It's the only thing that's real in this game. Everything else is the hand waves so you don't see the prestige, right? So you get Elizabeth back and it's like, well, they're not going to give us the gunship unless we get guns for them. So we're going to go to the gun dealer. Oh, where's the gun dealer? and I can't remember what it. Oh, he's there, but his tools have been gone. Or no,
Who's the gun killer?
It's an Asian guy.
Yeah, it was
so,
a Chinese. Okay,
so
I
he's
can't
not
remember.
there. His tools are there, but he's not there. He's been arrested. You go down to the basement after all
And he's
this
been
contrived
killed,
horseshit
right?
fighting,
Yeah.
and the dude who's been teasing you the whole time killed him just so you couldn't have him, thinking, I'm going to work with you now.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth opens. This is problem number one, and it shows the prestige too early. She goes, well, why don't I just open reality? We'll just go in another reality where he wasn't killed. When you do that, you've officially said as a game, this reality doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
And when you say that, that opens the door for all realities to not matter. Which I think they know, but this is the message of the game, man. It's Bioshock Legacy, right?
Uh-huh.
So you open the portal. He's not dead now, but he doesn't have his tools. So you go back down to the fucking thing, and the tools are there, but they're too big to move. So Elizabeth goes, why don't we just open a portal where he never lost his guns? So, okay, now you open another portal, and he has his tools, his guns were never stolen, and also the Vox Populi are now winning the war.
Yeah.
This is a reality in which Booker DeWitt didn't go about the path you've gone about up to this point. He just sided with the Vox and has
like
helped
a
them.
hero or whatever.
He's the hero of the Vox.
Yeah.
So now you're traveling through basically through the Founders as they're falling. And the Vox are all like, they're taking pictures next to dead bodies, and you're like, cool, we won. You know? And you get up to the tower because you just want your fucking Zeppelin back.
Yeah.
But Daisy Fitzroy at this point's like, Booker DeWitt, I saw you die a hero, and if you're alive now, that just creates complications. So they just start attacking you.
So I'm gonna kill this white child.
Instead of just giving you the Zeppelin and then you'd leave, which accomplishes the same fucking goal. But here's the thing, this game is not about any of the things that happens in it.
No.
Those things just happen to have a story. Because they're just, all the things they throw in there, all the elements, they throw in things that don't make any sense. You visit your mother's ghost, which is apparently a thing you can do.
I forgot about that.
There's
What was
no...
that?
That's just making the game longer.
When
you
did
go,
that happen? I don't even remember that.
You're trying to get to Comstock Tower
Yeah.
to end this. Oh, the door is locked because it's not the DNA code. You need your mother's DNA code. Oh, well, I'm gonna go into the crypt where my mother is and take her hand, right?
No, that was Lady Comstock.
Yes, Lady Comstock.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, we're gonna go take her hand.
There was a fucking ghost in that game.
I
forgot about that!
There's literally a
I
ghost.
forgot there was a fucking ghost!
Dude, there's a ghost that makes zombies in that game.
Oh my god!
Because she resurrects dead
I
bodies.
forgot about that! What the fuck?
Because this game is not about what's happening in it.
I totally forgot
They're
that
just
happened.
making it long enough to call it a game. They have 1 hour of content
forgot.
and 10 hours that they need to fill to get you there.
Why did they put a ghost?
So you go
in
to
the
take her
game?
hand,
No,
and,
wait,
and
really?
you can't
What?
because something happened. They're like, speakers played mute, and they're like,
Why was
you
there-
can't take her hand. And then her ghost
Why was
flows
there a
up and
ghost
goes
in the
away.
game?
I don't know.
Totally forgot about
Dude,
that.
I don't know.
I remember playing. I was like, "What the fuck? Why is
There's
that?"
There's a ghost in the game because at that point in the game,
my
you
God.
get to Comstock Tower and they go, holy shit, the game's only 5 hours long. We need to make it longer. What do we do? Fuck, let's make the door locked. Okay, how do they open the door? You know what they're gonna need?
ghosts.
Lady Comstock's hand. Oh, but Lady Comstock's hand's only like 100 yards away. Okay, so how do we keep them from getting the hand? Fuck, I don't know. Think about it. I know! Make her a ghost that walks away. And you have to listen to Tears in Time so that you can have...
shit.
And we'll make it an emotional moment. Elizabeth and her will talk, and they'll have statements about each other. Like, I know you hated me, and I hated you, but we need to get through this, so blah, blah, blah. And the ghost, you don't ever unlock the door. The ghost just destroys the door because...
I literally...
LOL.
My mind is still blank. I feel like that was the twist of the evening, is that you made me remember that was in that game.
I'm sorry.
Because I totally forgot, and Jesus Christ.
But again, it doesn't matter. It's in there because it makes the game longer. Every single thing in Bioshock Infinite is there because it makes the game longer. And they want to throw in elements that like tease you, like, look, we're making you make choices that aren't real choices. Haha, but I bet you expected that, didn't you?
was there
But
a
you're
ghost
not
in
going to
this
expect time travel.
Oh,
I'm jerking off a dick into my face. If you couldn't see that through the radio. But this game, again, I've said this a million times while we were having this discussion. This game is about the last hour of that game. And everything before it is just there.
No, that's why it wasn't satisfying when I got to the end. Like, because
Yes.
you get to the... I mean, what was the twist in that game? I don't even remember. Because I thought the twist was supposed to be, oh, Elizabeth is your daughter.
No, the twist in that game is that this is the way they address their own legacy. We can't. Like, that is the statement. Because the plot plays out that in order to make, even though it's infinite timelines, right?
Yeah.
And anything could happen, and every version of the future will exist. The game ends with 1,000 Elizabeths drowning you and then vanishing so that you never become Comstock, which is also a huge flaw of the game because they never give a convincing case for why you would become Comstock.
Yeah.
Apparently, because here's the thing. The game is racist in the same way that Call of Duty Ghosts is racist. It's racist by stupidity. It throws in elements that it feels are lurid, but it has no statements to make about them. So when you're killing black people and the Irish all of a sudden, it's not really a statement of like, look, you know, even the downtrodden can become evil. I mean, we lived in a reality that had,
because that was bullshit.
yeah, no, we like I said this last night, we as people on Earth lived through a reality in which the civil rights movement did not end with MLK shooting the president. You know what I mean?
Which is kind of what the game was trying to say.
Yes.
You know, like...
The civil rights era happened with nothing that happened on Columbia happening in terms of it wasn't black people found guns from a Chinese guy and then went, we need to kill... I mean, there's literally a point where Daisy Fitzroy is holding a child and going, we need to pluck the weed up by the root. Like, she's going to stab a child just because I'm just as evil as
basically
Comstock.
white genocide. Because...
But here's the thing. Comstock's evil is just as from nowhere as Daisy's is. Because Booker DeWitt, he was at the Battle of Wounded Knee or whatever, right? So it's basically the plot of Last Samurai, but with time travel, right? So he's seen some awful Civil War shit, and he's become an alcoholic. Now, the thing of the game is that there was a turning point in Booker DeWitt's life.
Also, he fought for the Confederacy, didn't he?
I don't know. It didn't even matter.
But that's what I'm saying. It was another thing that I felt like, well, is there a reason to know that?
No, it didn't matter.
It didn't matter. I mean,
it didn't matter because the Booker DeWitt that you play can be observed saying things that are like, he's for black people.
That's what I'm saying.
He's for the minority, but he treats them like they're people. The end.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, well, I don't know.
He monologues to himself. He's one to express like, why would I treat you any different? They make the clear case that Booker DeWitt is not a racist. So what about being dunked in water and being baptized turned him into a psycho-racist? Because that is the hook of the game as they present it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, why was he fighting for the Confederacy? Like, what did that piece of information even have to do with anything?
Nothing. It's a not thought out game.
I mean, that's what, yeah.
They just didn't think about it. The game was about time travel and infinite universes, and everything else was just shit they threw at you, and don't pay attention to this because it's not going to matter later. But that's the flaw of the game. If the person is not a real person, then it doesn't matter what their infinite futures are. Because I don't believe any of them. You know, Comstock, no, sorry, I don't believe... It's as unintentionally racist as Daisy Fitzroy just wants to kill white people because she's just as bad is. They're saying the same thing about Christians, which is, if you've had a trauma in your life and you get baptized, then you are predisposed to have these crazy pro-white philosophy about things and start your own floating city. Like, it doesn't intentionally say that, but that is what happens. And by putting that in a game, you're saying this is a thing that could happen. If you get baptized, you could decide all black people should serve me in my sky palace. That's what happened in the game.
I mean,
that's what the game is about.
It's
and
so
bizarre. They never show Comstock's arc, like how he gets to be that person.
Why did he make Columbia too? Now I think about it, because you clearly understand why Andrew Ryan.
That white people could be taller than the other people.
No, was there because Andrew Ryan, you really you get why Rapture exists. Like it makes sense within the context of of his philosophy. I don't remember Comstock now that I think about it. Like
he is the religious. He is the religious. Permutation of Andrew Ryan. Everything Andrew Ryan believes because of philosophy, Comstock believes because of destiny and religion.
But that doesn't even really justify the idea of a city in the clouds.
We're talking about a game that is about literally manifest destiny. They thought they were making a statement about manifest destiny. The problem is, Andrew Ryan spouted his philosophy and grounded himself in it and made his personality about it. Comstock just said religious shit that was hateful. And they thought that that was the same effect. Like, if he says... Because you pick up these audio tapes... I'm sorry, voxophones. Of him espousing his philosophy, and he's literally comparing black people to dogs. He's like, I had a dog when I was growing up, and, if I feed him, he loved me. And if I beat him, he still loved me. And if black people could just get to that point... Then maybe they could be equal.
See, nothing about Infinite.
Says that on a
Infinite was memorable. This is why it's interesting that you just played
his
it.
Philosophy.
So much of it.
Dude, I'll forget it in a week.
That's what I'm saying. I probably will. I'll probably forget again.
It's just gonna be gone.
There were fucking ghosts in this game.
No ghosts.
I still can't get over that. There was ghosts in this game,
and not the good ghost from Modern Warfare 2. The shitty ghost that makes your game not make sense.
I totally forgot about that.
Ghosts!
Why did you fight a ghost? Oh, God.
Because the game needed to be longer, and it needed a midpoint boss fight.
So retarded.
Yeah, the whole game is fucking retarded. The whole thing is fucking dumb.
You're actually kind of making me depressed talking about this game again. I'd forgotten... I was annoyed, annoyed, and I think so much of it didn't stick with me because I was just too busy.
Because you refused to let it?
Yeah, I was just kind of whatever, and then it was all done, and now I'm remembering all of this shit that
yeah, it's like a fucking old war memory.
Yeah, I feel like you tore the wound open
I'm
again.
Sorry. Don't get baptized, or you might start wanting to kill Whitey.
What did the Lutesses have? God fucking...
Here's the thing with the Lutesses, because they put more energy into the Lutesses than they put into the entire game. Because the Lutesses were emblematic of what the game was about in their minds, okay? So this is the deal with the Lutesses. The Lutesses are the same person. The female Lutess and the brother Lutess are just alternates from different realities.
I understood that, but
the whole hook of it is that since they're both the same, they were both trying to find each other in their own way. Like, they suspected that the other existed, and they formulated this technology to be able to jump the gap and be together.
No, I understood
the ultimate version of twincest that you've ever seen.
But I'm saying thematically now that I'm thinking, what did that play into in the end?
Well, that is what made all of the time travel things possible, because they are a metaphor, because they're the engine that drives the, quote, morality of the plot, right? Because they're not moral people, they're creating these scientific advances, and the morality painting is Booker DeWitt, right? Booker DeWitt and his daughter are the morality painting of this game, and they're the science painting. So they're the engine that makes this morality play possible.
But I'm saying, the last time you see the Lutesses, what are they doing?
I don't even remember.
That's what I'm saying, because I don't understand, do you even need the Lutesses then?
No, the game didn't need the Lutesses.
So that's what I'm saying, what was...
The Lutesses were just there to get your mind on the same page of what they were talking about. Because if you didn't see the Lutess backstory in terms of, if you didn't see their weirdness, and A, know that weirdness is going to happen in this game, and then B, as you see their technology as you're going through the game, especially their lab, go... Okay, it's introducing you to the concept of what is possible in this universe. That is why the Lutesses are there.
But it still just doesn't make sense to me.
Because the Lutesses are awful characters, and they think that having these characters doing whimsical things together is like having an interesting thing in a game. But as it stood, I hated the Lutesses from literally minute 1. When you're on the rowboat and they're being snarky back and forth to each other, I said to myself, I hope I don't see these characters again. And lo and behold, I saw them for the fucking entirety of the game. And just constantly being cute. And the second time I saw them, I went, oh no, this is going to be a thing, isn't it? And sure enough, it was. You have to think of this not as a game, but as story structure. If the end of the game is the way you see it in your mind, this brilliant time is an illusion, all this alternate reality horseshit, then you need a cipher peppered throughout the game to slowly bring the observer who doesn't know the end of the game yet, to bring them up to speed so that they are capable of receiving it and understanding it.
But it doesn't matter ultimately for like the way the game turns out, I'm saying.
That's what makes it a bad game.
It just...
But that is structurally, from a writing structure standpoint, why they exist in that game.
I
That's the question you have. Your question is not why weren't they better. I have the answer for that too. Because they don't have good writers at Irrational Games. They just don't. And here's what happened with Bioshock Infinite, from what I read. Bioshock Infinite was almost vaporware for a long time. It had an unnaturally long development cycle. And we don't know the official reason, or we do, and I'm too lazy to read it up. But from what I remember at the time, the strong feeling was they were trying to find a way to make multiplayer work in that game. And they spent a lot of money making a multiplayer portion to that game, and ultimately it didn't work, and they scrapped it, but they were out all that money. And it extended the development time of the title greatly. So they ended up spending way too much money making this game that is a hollow, jerk-off victory lap for Bioshock 1. And we exist in a culture now where a game has to make $100 billion just to break even. Well, they were way past breaking even. Everyone had to buy Bioshock Infinite for them to have a fighting chance. That didn't happen, and the company went out of business.
Really?
And that is what should have happened. When I played this game, the first thing I said is, what happened in real life is exactly what should have happened. And all the people who went to the internet going,
so the game...
fuck the world, man.
So the game
They made
flopped?
this brilliant game. No, it didn't flop. But it didn't make $20 billion, which is what they needed it to make.
So what...
We already exist in a culture where when you spend a lot of money on gaming, and that's what AAA does, you need to have a big return. It's like the Hollywood blockbuster, but times 10. Well, this cost even more money than that because they spent so much time on it. Imagine making a mode and spending extra months on the mode and then scrapping the mode entirely. It's such a waste of money. It's like, imagine if Starbucks decided, we're also going to let people rent cars from here. And they spent all of the money to build the infrastructure for car rental. And then, and then
bought cars.
That includes the infrastructure. And then they bought 15 cars, and they're 75% of the way, and they're like, wait a minute, no one goes to Starbucks to rent cars. I don't think this is viable. But they can't give the money back. The money's gone forever. So now Starbucks in this fiscal year needs to make so much money. Because they've bought 40 billion cars for each so each location has 100 cars, right? Because this is the thing. Because multiplayer is what sells games as far as AAA is concerned. Yeah. That's why Titanfall exists. Titanfall is the thesis statement of that. But it's the stripped-down bare version of, we think that a game can be only multiplayer and people will still buy it. And that was true. But they kept their focus tight. Bioshock Infinite, in all ways, overreached. Its reach exceeded its grasp. Intellectually, from a storytelling perspective, and from... what they were just trying to achieve with it as a game. Now, Bioshock 2 had multiplayer that everyone hated. So I guess they thought, well, we could figure out a way to do it. And then, you've played the final product. There's no multiplayer in Bioshock Infinite. And there was a ton of speculation that this game was held back for at least a year because they were developing and then all those assets just get thrown away because what are they being used for? Yeah. Not a sequel now!
Well, Burial at Sea, maybe.
No. By the way, I read the plot of Burial at Sea on Wikipedia.
Don't tell me.
I'm just going to tell you that their goal with Burial at Sea, the DLC, and this is exactly why you should skip it, is their goal from Burial at Sea was to marry Bioshock Infinite as much to Bioshock 1 as possible. So the whole thing, they tried to make it seem like without Bioshock Infinite, the plot of Bioshock 1 never would have happened the way it did. Dr. Suchong is a major character. The Big Daddies and Songbird are related. They go to a painstaking degree to make you understand that without Bioshock Infinite, Bioshock 1 as a timeline never happened. Never mind that Bioshock Infinite established that no timeline matters. But that is 100% what that's about. Because you play, the first DLCs you play as Booker DeWitt, but you're actually not Booker DeWitt. You're a version of Comstock that feels guilty about Elizabeth dying, because it's an alternate reality version in which when Comstock was pulling the baby through the portal closed on her head and killed her. So instead of having this future daughter and all this thing, he has nothing, and he goes, he teleports through the Lutesses to the Bioshock 1 timeline to forget his life and be a private detective in Bioshock 1. And then he meets
Is this like before the Fall of Rapture?
Yes. And then he meets dude, they're responsible for the Fall of Rapture in the DLC.
Oh my god.
Because Elizabeth helps Atlas. Because Atlas, at this point in the story, Andrew Ryan isolated him and cut him off in a section of the city that was just completely removed from any other section, and he had no way out. So he was just going to starve to death. And Elizabeth used her powers to reconnect that to the city, thus allowing...
Why is Elizabeth alive?
This is an alternate reality Elizabeth that showed up there. I can't remember
just by herself?
The reason. Yes. Well, she hires Booker DeWitt, who doesn't remember her, or doesn't have any reason to know her. The listener hates this as much as you do. That's why I've gone as far as I have. I mean, honestly, Coin is listening, and anyone else... Dude, we've talked about Bioshock Infinite for like 40 hours. But, you know, look it up yourself. It's terrible. And that Elizabeth, at the end of DLC 1, realizes that Comstock is who he is and kills him. That's how DLC 1 ends. And then DLC 2 begins. You play as Elizabeth, and she dies too.
Okay.
And she dies making Bioshock 1 possible. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Okay.
Thank you for your gift.
Okay.
Yeah, it's bad fan fiction. It's bad fan fiction the way the show Fargo is bad fan fiction. You're either angry or you're laughing at it. And you can only be one of the two. And anyone who says it's brilliant is an insane person. In my opinion. But I wanted to compare Bioshock to Wolfenstein because I think they are very similar structurally in terms of one thing. I think that they're trying to tell a very similar tale. Now, I've told you, in my opinion, the conceit of Bioshock Infinite is the time travel shit, and everything else doesn't matter. But the conceit they've built is fairly similar to Wolfenstein in that, okay, it's alternate reality setting, right?
Yeah.
You're fighting against a fascist force that has far more power than you do. You're a stranger in a hostile world, right? And the point of the game is to try to resist that. The difference between Wolfenstein and Bioshock Infinite, besides, you know, all of the differences, but thematically, the difference between these two games is Wolfenstein never lets you believe that it's not possible to win in the end. Like, if you keep fighting, that's how there's hope. You just keep resisting. Bioshock's conceit is that you should never have even tried, and even trying is what got you to this point in the first place. So, one is, the thrust of the narrative is a positive thrust. I'm trying to make a difference.
Noticing a
the thrust of the Bioshock narrative is negative. I don't think I can make a difference, and lo and behold, as I try to make differences, it makes the world worse. Because every difference you make is to the deficit of the world. So basically, the thematic message of Bioshock, without trying to be, is saying, don't try. You'll make things worse. Whereas Wolfenstein's message is saying, if something is wrong, fight to the death to make it right, because that is better than accepting it. Because Wolfenstein, the only group it shames besides the Nazis, are people who give up. And I don't want to say it shames them, but it looks on them with pity, like, you need to bring that person up as a fellow human being.
All of the characters consistently are strong characters.
Your character never loses hope because it comes from rage, right?
Yeah.
He'll die fighting Nazis. He basically did die fighting Nazis in the beginning of the game, and then stood right back up and started fighting them again.
Yeah.
You know, and the ending of that game is one of my favorite because he's just literally quoting the Statue of Liberty's pedestal.
You would have liked the J moment then.
And the context of that is so psychotic I don't know how it ends in your timeline, but in the Wolf and the one that I played,
ending, I'm pretty sure.
The girl's
he
holding
gives
up
the all
lamp.
clear, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And he's
no, but
just,
you would have liked the J moment because it's thematically that's what it is because he's not.
But it's
I
so
assumed he was
earnest.
Well, I assumed he was gonna pick up a gun at some point because he's the only character who never does. But what he says at the end is you're crawling through the vents and Blazkowicz is trying to get him to come with him, and he says, "No, man, like I've got a situation. His situation, he's stuck in his room, and there's Nazis banging on a door." And he says basically like, "I think I'm gonna have." He's like, "I've always hated the quiet." He says, "I'll have all of eternity to be quiet, but this moment right here is gonna be fucking loud."
Yeah.
And then he just blasts his. And again, it's one of those things that would have seemed corny, but because it's so earnest, it just
earnest,
works.
Yeah.
He plays the Jimi Hendrix national anthem on guitar while he's being shot to death by Nazis. And it's just fucking great because even in that little way, he didn't give up either. Like it's not. It's just like I'm gonna be fucking loud. Like I'm gonna do what I do, even if it's.
See, in the reality version of my game, did you have the crazy woman who has all the books and shit?
Mm-mm.
See, in my reality, that's who replaced Jimi Hendrix. This is crazy woman who the whole game is never supportive, but up until the end, like right in the end, and she dies too in a very similar fashion.
Yeah.
And she's in the room that you're talking about.
Probably.
But she's
yeah.
like, I've calculated the odds, and for us to have a fighting chance, every person in this resistance base needs to kill 18 Nazis for us to break even. And then she points to a pile of dead bodies. She's like, I'm up to 10, and I think I can make it. And she's like, and I'm gonna try, but you need to keep going. And then, like, you're in the vent, and you're like, you basically watch her die, killing more of them. Like, she's like, and that doesn't count the 7 I killed this morning doing this, or like all these little things, So, like, that was that message of, like, I'm resisting, and death resisting is more noble than submitting and surviving.
Well, yeah. I mean,
That is the ultimate message of that game, and it's so earnest about it, It really is kind of throwback. But that's a game that believes in change, whereas Bioshock Infinite does not believe in change. Or at least it does not believe in positive change.
It doesn't believe in meaningful change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have a teaser after the end credits where maybe Booker DeWitt has his child again and everything's back to normal. But you've never allowed me
I forgot
to...
that happened too.
Yeah.
All I remember was the Elizabeth...
But it's ambiguous,
all I remember
man.
is the Elizabeth's fading out.
Yeah.
And while she drowns and the credits go by, I fucking forgot about that. I'm pissed now.
I'm sorry.
Where he wakes up, he's like, what is it? What was her daughter's name? Yeah, Anna? What was it? I don't even remember.
It was Anna DeWitt. Because he had AD written on his hand.
Oh, that pisses me off. I forgot they did that.
Yes, they did.
Like, is she behind the door?
And then they didn't
you.
And then they didn't even give it to you because they don't believe in like positivity.
Yeah.
It's all about that. Like they don't want you to come away from the game feeling like you grew as a person or anything matters. And that kind of nihilistic gaming is where we've been at for like the last 5 years. And that's exactly why, like Wolfenstein, it was so far in the other direction that it was refreshing.
Yeah, that was great.
Because the game believed in the impossible. We could beat the Nazis if we hate them enough.
Yes.
And you kind of do.
Yeah, you do.
Or at least you make a huge problem for them.
You definitely hate Death's Head.
Yes.
You do a really good job of that.
Yes. He's really gross.
Yeah. And fucking what's her name?
And Wolfenstein also ends ambiguously. Because the post-credit sequence for that game is you hear helicopters in the distance approaching.
You said that. I didn't know what to make of that.
I think it implies...
Is that supposed to be ambiguous? Because I just kind of took it as...
Let me put it this way. Wolfenstein is the third game in a series, and it's always had the same protagonist. I'm going to go out on a limb and say they did not kill their main character. Oh, spoiler alert. I'm going to say that they did not kill the character, but the way the game ends, you're grievously wounded, and you assume they're just going to nuke the place he's in, because that's what he tells them to do. But once the credits roll and you hear helicopters, that leaves it open to interpretation. And like, you played through it, so you know at that point the Nazi effort in that area is broken.
Yeah.
So they can come back and get him. It's not like they're going to miss their opportunity. The leader is dead. The place is broken wide open. They can't close it again. A nuke is still going to destroy this place.
Yeah.
And they're not going to get away from it, or the people that do get away from it are not going to restart the world. I mean, here's the thing that I love about Wolfenstein. In a nutshell, that I can say that encompasses the whole game. Your character finds out the Nazis have a moon base, so he destroys it.
Yeah.
He goes there and destroys it. His
That's my favorite line in the whole game.
His reaction when he finds out the Nazi
on the moon.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, fuck you, moon.
Yeah, they've got a moon base on the moon. Fuck you, moon. And then when he's coming down from the moon, He's literally like speaking poetically about how he just wants to get back to his woman that he loves, and their bond is in killing Nazis together, and he's falling through the atmosphere while every Nazi on Earth is trying to kill him. And you're like, this game is so nuts. But I just love the thrust of it, you know?
That was really fantastic.
I really liked that. But that, I think, is the main difference between Bioshock. Cynicism of Bioshock is just so...
See, I didn't even take it to be cynicism. I just took it to be, like, idiocy.
Because it's so lazy that you can't feel about it. But if you had feelings...
Like, it's just like...
But imagine if you were really somehow invested in the characters, and then you have the ending, and the ending is that you can't change as a person. It's Donnie Darko, but with racism. Right? Because it's the same ending of Donnie Darko. But Donnie Darko worked because Donnie Darko is a teenager. And a stupid teenager. Jake Gyllenhaal is a teenager. But Booker DeWitt is a man. And a man doesn't kill himself to prevent himself from becoming a racist. That's bullshit.
Yeah, no,
I get that they're trying to say something about duality, but they've done nothing to reinforce that. So in the end, what the game says is you should kill yourself, because you definitely won't become a racist if you do. And what am I supposed to take from that?
Yeah.
You know, like, what does that give me as an art? You know, I've seen dozens of movies. Not all of them would I say I took something. I didn't take anything from Pain and Gain. But this is a game that is ostensibly trying to say a message. The message isn't bodybuilders are dumb. It's a time travel message. But what is the message? Except what I've taken from it, which is give up. It's safer that way for everyone involved.
You thought harder on this than I did, because
I think hard on everything.
No, I mean it's a good thing. I'm not
That's
saying.
why I hated Mass Effect 3.
I'm just saying, like I guess I never thought to give them enough credit, because the whole thing just felt very lazy to me.
Yes,
and so I just kind of thought, well, nothing sticks with me. It was kind of felt like a waste of time. Like I like the thing. I couldn't even penetrate enough as far as thought to get through the cynicism that you're talking about. And I see it now, like you're pointing it out, and I can understand what you're saying. But
I will never stop saying this now that I've completed this game. I see being this game like watching Twin Peaks. It was a necessary evil to comment on a thing that is a thing in this culture, right? Twin Peaks is fucking everywhere. You have to watch it.
Yeah, no,
but now that I've played Bioshock Infinite and I feel like I know its inner workings, I'm glad that I can say these things. But this is the thing I have to say. They wanted to follow it up for legacy purposes and for monetary purposes. Yeah. And I think those two things were equal. I think the money might have been greater, only because this is so devoid of creativity that it feels passionless. It is a passionless game.
It definitely doesn't.
It's rigidly painted by the numbers. It has no message. The message is accidental, and it makes you feel like shit. It's just a game that was to celebrate in the glory of, look at us, we made Bioshock 1 and it was brilliant. And it's hubris. It's hubris, the game.
I don't agree with that.
And like fucking Icarus' son, it flew too close to the sun. And it fell into the ocean and died.
That was Icarus.
Was it Icarus?
Yeah,
I thought it was Icarus'
I always forget
son.
the dad's name. No, but Icarus was the one who flew close to the sun.
I'm not good with mythology. But I am good at saying Bioshock was a bad game, it failed, and everyone out of business. Bioshock Infinite, yes.
I would, yeah.
And anyone who looks at the story of what happened with Bioshock Infinite as like the tragedy of the video game industry, unless they're looking at it from the perspective of it's tragic that they tried to make this the way they did, that is the appropriate way to look at it. In my opinion, it is not appropriate to look at this game and go, this game shouldn't have failed. This should have been lauded. The critics gave it so much praise. How could the company have gone out of business? This is such a crazy industry. This is a game that fucked itself to death.
Yeah.
It's
and then didn't try.
This game is the equivalent of a South Korean who plays StarCraft for 72 hours until he dies. It should have stood up to drink water. It should have stood up to fucking go get some food. It just sat there and played StarCraft to death.
I would disagree with that analogy only because that kid is still at least good at StarCraft.
No, he's dead.
No, I'm saying for
dead.
For that 72-hour period.
And when you
he's
look
good at StarCraft.
Right.
Whereas in Bioshock Infinite, there's nothing.
And when you look back on the legacy of his life, you can say about him, he loved StarCraft. You can't say he had a brilliant statement. You can't say he made a difference in someone's life except his parents. You can only say that motherfucker loved StarCraft more than drinking water. And is that a virtue? No, it's not a
No.
virtue. It's a statement, certainly, but it's not the statement you want to make, and certainly not a statement that you want gamers to embrace. In the same way that gamers shouldn't look at that fucking kid and go, man, what a hero. He went to Gamer Valhalla. We're supposed to look at him and be embarrassed that happened. I'm embarrassed that Bioshock Infinite happened. It's a fucking embarrassing game.
It's.
I don't know what else I can say about it.
No, I mean, yeah,
Other than
I
that.
didn't take it that personally, but that was definitely my Mass Effect 3 moment. Funny that it was the third in the series, and that was like a similar thing, because
Well, that's...
ever since Bioshock Infinite, I have not been excited about a game. Like, even I enjoyed Wolfenstein, but I wasn't excited
But it's tempered.
beforehand.
It's all tempered now, isn't it?
Yeah. I was not
Everything
excited
is
about it. I was
tempered.
like, well, Wolfenstein looks interesting. Bethesda, I liked Skyrim.
I got excited about it and then dialed it down.
Really?
That's just what I do now.
Oh, okay.
Ever since...
I haven't had to dial anything down.
And, you say it's...
Even Titanfall, like, I don't even know if Travis actually owns Titanfall or not.
I have no
But he
idea.
was the first person I heard talk about it, and
Yeah.
he tends to follow stuff like as it's in development.
Sure.
And so like the day it came out or whatever, like I had only heard about it the day before, and you're like, you should just buy it, and I did, and I liked it. But I like everything now afterwards. But I don't.
Yes.
I don't make a purchase anymore.
No.
And I'm like, yes, let's fucking go. It's
Yeah,
like,
no.
It's like, well, I hope this is good,
Dude, that's what
Like,
that's what this gaming culture has done to gaming.
yeah.
Because you used to have that. You used to buy games off the box art alone because you were just excited to be playing a video game.
Yeah.
I bought Mega Man X because the cover looked rad. And then I loved that game as I was playing. I'm like, that was the childish era of that thing. It's like, I'm excited every moment that this game is happening from the beginning. I cried when Zero died.
I remember that you said that.
That was a thing that happened, and it was like real. And Wolfenstein recaptured that feeling of like it wanted you to feel that as a gamer, that level of investment, which is what made it feel fresh. But I'm an adult man now, and that youth has been killed by this industry that went, holy shit, we could make money off of these rubes. Basically, the innocence of the industry. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that, like, I don't know, like, I don't want to paint the industry as just being filled with these wide-eyed because you can't look at an industry filled with so many sexists like the good old days. Like, I don't want to look at it like,
But people do
like
that with
old
America
people,
anyway.
Yeah, and it's wrong. People look back at the 50s and like, it was a much simpler time. Yes.
That's you don't hear. People knew their place.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's the sentence that follows. It's like Darth
Jesus.
Vader's like, come to the dark side. We will bring order to the galaxy. Like, yes, there's order. I get it. There's also a fountain for just black people. That's what you miss?
That's actually one of my favorite parts of Wolfenstein is like that's the exact kind of thing Death's Head is saying at the end of the game. It's like, in the end we will be judged by what we have created.
Not what we've
Not
destroyed.
what have you done?
Yeah.
Created. And he's like, he believes that shit.
Yes.
It's psychotic.
Yes.
And it's great.
Yes, it's turning
I
that
love-
belief back on
Yeah,
itself because
I
it
love
lacks
it.
humanity.
He's like, I wanted to bring peace and order.
But what is that if everyone's dead, there's peace?
And I love when you shoot the Zeppelin.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you're so wonderfully violent.
Yeah.
There were men on that who had families, hardworking, innocent men. Oh my god.
No one is innocent in 1960s fucking alternate reality Germany.
But
if they
I
were
just-
innocent, they would have been in
But
our
that's
shelter.
what we're talking about. I just love that that's like
the other thing I
that's
love about
Deathhead's
that is
point
you're
of view.
making metal album covers in a boss fight.
Yes,
like you blow up a
exactly.
Zeppelin, the first thing you will is that I just made a Metallica album
Yeah,
cover
exactly.
or something like
Then
that. You know,
then you blow up
It's
fucking robots.
just
with lightning.
so metal.
I love that game.
But that era of innocence, they mined it to death, and now the vein is empty. And
Yeah.
you know who did a lot of that groundwork? Nintendo, and I think that they still do good with that because they still have that feeling as a company.
I know you're
Nintendo doesn't connect to me
yeah,
anymore.
I know.
But
they
I
don't,
look at it as an outside observer, and of all of the three gaming things, I respect them for what the thrust of what they're doing the most. Even though the way they do it, I think, is catastrophically dumb. The intent is what matters, and their intent is still love of the game and exploring new things. Let's make Mario fucking shoot a water cannon world. Let's make him 3D. Let's make him 2D. Let's make him 3D and 2D. It's just literally, let's just do a new fun thing. It's very in the kids' world of what is fun for games.
Yeah.
As an adult, to me, it's dumb.
I still like it.
But if you're an 8-year-old, you will love that shit. And they do.
I'm an 8-year-old at heart, so,
you know? They killed the 8-year-old at heart me. Nintendo didn't. Sony did. Microsoft did. The adult companies did. Well, the platforms that brought the adult games.
What did they do?
Because gaming became ashamed of being... We're still in that era of gaming is ashamed of its childish origins.
Yeah.
That's why it does all this dumb shit.
I mean, there are a lot of games I like.
So they're stuck at teenagers.
We should come back to this topic again, because at some point...
I'm sure we will. Time is a flat
What
circle.
I mean is, like, because at some point I do want... I mean, this is just, I guess, setting up some future podcast.
Uh-huh.
At some point I want to get either a Wii U or a 3DS.
Uh-huh.
Because I've heard a lot of good things about both. Not in terms of, like, you know, kind of what they missed. Like, the Wii should have been HD. It should have had all the, you know, what do you call it? Netflix, Hulu, all of that kind of
accoutrement.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff, like, from the beginning, and that's kind of what the Wii U is catching up on. But even, like, from gameplay elements, like,
because they see it as a child's device, not
that, but
also
just in the way that they've, like, they've worked with the soul of kind of what you're talking about. Like, there's a video game developer that Drew interviewed, and I always feel bad because I forget all their names, but he talked about how he loves, he thinks one of the best games he's played in the last, like, several years is, A Link Between Worlds, which was a 3DS title that came out. It's basically just I mean, again, this won't interest you, but I'd be curious to see once I actually play these games. Well, it might. But it takes Link to the Past and sort of revisits that world, but like with a whole bunch of new elements to it. And you know, it's part rehashing, which is what Nintendo does, and it's also part like new ways of utilizing the technology and the whole, you know. So I guess that's just a long way to say
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I loved Metroid Prime, and that was literally how can we make Metroid different? Let's try to make it into a first-person shooter, and it worked for me.
Yeah, I
you know, and I expected to hate that game.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I was a die-hard fan of Super Metroid.
No,
so I was
a
a Metroid purist.
Yeah, no, I know. But...
So I didn't come to that with a closed mind, but I came to that with a...
cautious mind?
I expected less.
Oh, okay.
But I think that's where I'm at with all gaming now, because that's how you get pleasantly surprised.
I would agree. Yeah.
Not disappointed.
I don't even know what's coming up. Like,
it's not worth knowing.
Yeah.
Everything is a franchise. Everything is a trilogy. Everything is a... They like to do the trilogy and then continue the idea because it's about making money first.
Yeah.
This medium is just about making money. In Hollywood, some of that is true. But there are also people who spend their own money just to get a fucking crazy statement out there. And that's also true in gaming. But, you know, I want to say that it's not 100% of Hollywood. It probably is. But... But, like, I've still seen Hollywood movies that did have like, Fight Club did have a message.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? American Psycho had a message. It was a very sarcastic message. But
it's funny because I didn't see a lot of those movies back when they first came out, so you would call them Hollywood, though, like, as far as, like major features that were released by, you know...
I think both of those are kind of underground-ish movies. I'm saying that simply purely as a person who was young when they came out, so I could be totally wrong.
Well, that's why I'm not sure. Like, I'm just
curious. Killing Them Softly came out a couple years ago. It was one of Gandolfini's last movies. I've mentioned it a million times.
Yeah,
I'm sure people in the podcast have heard me say this.
I remember you saying
if you listen to this. But that was a movie that was about something. And it was a very... I love that movie. And that was a Hollywood movie.
Okay. That
came from Hollywood. But it had a lot to say about crime and the way it wears you down. Mm. And how when you're in that world, you can feel trapped in that world. It had statements to make. What are the statements of Mass Effect 4, which is, you know, the game they're working on right now? And the first thing they said about it is, Corey Hudson is like, hey, we want your ideas of what you think Mass Effect 4 should be about. Motherfucker, that's not how art works. You have a thing to say. You say it. You don't ask me, what would you like to hear, unless you're about making money. Like, that's like an arcade game thing. Well, where would you like to shoot enemies? Like...
Or that's like a...
Mass Effect is an RPG that is story-driven. You don't ask me what I want the game to be about. You make the game and tell me, this is interesting, isn't it? You don't think so? How about go fuck yourself? That's what we made the game about. This is my statement through game. You know, this is what this team creatively endeavored to make.
That's some, like, focus group candy bar shit.
Exactly! Not fucking plot writing by committee. We're looking at a future Bioshock Infinite because they don't know what to make it about, so they're just going to throw something together because it's about making money, not about inspiring people to get into the gaming industry, not about, like, bringing a message that you haven't seen before. None of those things. That's none of the things they're even talking about in the press right now. They're like, we have exciting new technology, the worlds are going to be alive and living and feel real, and you're going to feel really connected to it, and you're going to do things. You're going to be on a planet, you're going to have a vehicle, and you just... Nothing about, we want to explore what it means to be a human in the times of, you know, the future where technology can do this.
Where
you
we
know
have
what it's not
fucking
going to do?
alien races.
Yeah. Where you deal with alien races, with hyper advanced... You know what game did do
I
that?
would play an entire... I will... If they honestly asked me, I would say, I'll play an entire game where you're only in the Citadel. Now,
Yes.
Now go fucking write a story about it.
That won't happen.
I know it wouldn't,
That
but I'm
wouldn't
saying
happen.
that's what I would play.
You know,
Because that was the most exciting part when I started playing Mass Effect. I loved being in the fucking Citadel. And just interacting with different fucking aliens.
because it
and,
felt like a
hearing-
real place.
Yeah,
Even though it was limited.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
it was very
by
limited.
technology, especially. Like, they
Yeah.
couldn't... That was like the fucking
As
Mihawk
soon as I had
days
to
of
drive around the
Xbox.
fucking... It's the car.
The Mako.
The Mako. I was just bored. Like, I haven't picked up that game since. Mainly
Really?
because you told me not to play it.
Oh,
But...
I told you don't get invested.
Yeah,
Mass
that's what
Effect
you're
1
saying,
is a brilliantly flawed game. See, I forgive a game all of its flaws if its heart is in the right
No,
place.
I would too. But
Or
I'm
if
just
it's
saying.
trying
But I'm saying
something
the
new.
Citadel kept me going because I was like, this is fucking interesting shit happening right now. But then as soon as I got to the Mako and I like wasn't, it's just like go find this person.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
You know what you should play instead of Mass Effect? You should play Deus Ex Human Revolution. That is a flawed
that,
fucking
yeah.
game, but it never stops trying to be about something. It never stops trying to challenge you as a player. Here's a moral issue. This is what technology has allowed to be possible. What's the right answer? And it doesn't tell you or moralize. It just goes, here's both decisions, or 3 decisions, or, you know, no decisions. Like, and what you do may not even change the world you live in. Does it still matter? Like, it's always challenging you as a gamer to be engaged with what's going on. What would you... and it's close enough to the technology of our time that you could go, in my lifetime, I could imagine these problems.
And so the only... Shit, excuse me. And so the only reason I haven't bought that game, I think I just need a reminder. I don't need to have played the previous one.
No, not at all.
Okay,
It's a
the only-
prequel, and it makes, like, token references to the series, especially in the end. Like, there's a post-credit sequence where you hear some dialogue, but that does not matter at all. And I never played through Deus Ex all the way. I just read about it and watched videos, and I definitely never played Deus Ex 2. Human Revolution absolutely stands alone, and I say it's one of the best games I've ever played. And it
Okay.
has its fair share of flaws.
No, I played Alan Wake, and I
Yeah.
loved it. And that, as we said already, that had flaws too. So I would totally play. I don't care about like flaws
Yeah.
or whatever. But
And, you know, and back to the point of, I just want to say this real quick, lest it get confused. Like, I don't like games that have a negative message in the end. I just don't like games that are nihilistic or revel in
You
their
don't dislike
negativity.
games.
Like, it's so... Yes.
you
'Cause-
said I don't like games. I was trying to follow you. You don't dislike games that have a negative.
Yeah, sorry,
message.
I speak like an idiot. Good thing this is primarily visual medium we're going through, not dependent on words.
Yes, exactly.
I don't dislike games for having an ultimately negative tone to them. I dislike games that are nihilistic and feel like they don't deign to tell you a story, or the story they tell you they revel in saying it doesn't matter.
Did you finish The Last of Us or ever play it?
I did, and I hated
Okay,
it.
that's why I couldn't remember. Yeah, I
hated
couldn't
it.
make it through the game, but
It's not even worth it.
no, I know.
God, is it fucking contrived.
Cool. But that
Matt-
was one of those, wasn't it?
Yes.
And even you liked
No,
Fallout 3, or
it-
you just think Fallout New Vegas was better?
It ends kind of hopeful.
okay.
The Last of Us ends kind of hopeful because I mean, you're both alive, and your character lies to Ellie about why you're not in the fucking lab anymore. Because basically, the whole thrust of the game, we're just spoiling games.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm never gonna play it, so I'm just kind of.
No one should care, and no one should buy that game. The whole thrust of the game is that Ellie is immune to the clacker disease or whatever. So the whole point of the game is like a cross-country journey to get her to this lab.
Yeah.
So that they can synthesize a cure. Well, when you get her there, you find out that they're going to kill her to synthesize the cure, because they're going to kill her and look at her brain. Because science, that's how science works.
That's how it works.
In Dumb World.
Usually.
Well, they just use the post-apocalyptic thing as an excuse. Yeah. But once you find that out, Joel has a change of heart and decides to kill everyone and
Oh, he
and
loves
rescue
children
her.
now.
Yeah, even though he spends the first 90% of the game being fucking unbelievably shitty to this child that did nothing wrong to him because she reminds him of his daughter who died, because that's what the way a person would be.
If my daughter died, I would hate children forever.
Yeah.
I
Don't
would-
try
I
to
would-
bond
I
with
would
me,
not-
I'm hurting.
I would not want to ever try and make another child's world better because my child is dead.
I've said this before and I'll say it again, the only part of The Last of Us I liked was the part where Joel was listening to an audio tape of a guy's dying speech, and he rolls his eyes and fast forwards through it. Like, the guy's like, I guess this is how it ends. And Joel just goes, ugh. And goes, like, fast forwards, like, 30 seconds to the meat of the information he's trying to get. That was the first time I felt Joel was a real person. But,
But
the ending...
he did that.
Yes.
Which pissed me off.
But
Don't do this to me, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything he ever... We've talked about this before.
Yeah. So anyway, so he kills everyone and just they walk
And
away
rescues
from the
her,
lab.
and she's all passed out and shit. And, when they get to the end point, I can't remember the exact details, but it's something like, oh, they couldn't figure it out, or, oh, it didn't work. Or,
So they just walk off
or
from the
oh,
sunset,
they all got
or...
cancer. Like, I don't know. I can't remember what his bad excuse is, but the ending is...
It's like Payday, too. It's,
The ending is supposed to be ambiguous, because... Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're answering a pager, exactly. But the ending is supposed to be ambiguous because everyone has gone to the Prometheus screenplay school of writing, which is ambiguous equals interesting.
Oh.
I can't think of the guy's name, but he's a fucking hack cunt writer. But this is patterned in the exact same way, where it's like Ellie's suspicious, and you're supposed to go, oh, I bet she doesn't believe him, but then credits. And if something happened after the credits, I didn't see it because I didn't give a shit. I just stood up and went, fuck
But
you.
I'm saying, what are they even doing? Are they like...
They're back at his brother's facility, and they're just going to live there now.
Oh. How is that hopeful?
Because they didn't die. But that's what people liked
That
about it,
doesn't
man.
seem
It's like,
hopeful.
I love it because they didn't fix the world, and it ends on a hinge like, what's going to happen now? And I was like, who fucking cares?
But that doesn't seem hopeful to me.
No, it's
That
not.
just seems ambiguous. And
No, it's
like,
not. It's nihilistic in the same way.
I wouldn't even say nihilistic. I would just say like,
The whole point of the game was
It's like they didn't want to make the people who wanted them to survive upset, and they didn't want to make people.
Here's why it's nihilistic, because at the last second they decided that the message was about how a bond is more important than saving the entire human race, I guess. But they never spent any meaningful time developing that bond.
So.
He didn't start to develop a bond with her until she legitimately became in danger of dying for real. Before that point, he never bonded with her. You spend 8 hours not bonding with her. Now he cares. So they didn't do the work, so the ending is meaningless. So it becomes de facto nihilism.
Are you exaggerating, or they just...
I'm always exaggerating.
I know you're always exaggerating, but I'm saying, do you literally just not bond with her? Like...
You played the game. You tell me. Did
no,
you
but
see
I
a bonding
stopped.
experience?
I mean, obviously none whatsoever to as far as I got to.
Right.
But
how many hours did you play?
3 or 4, maybe.
Okay, imagine,
but I didn't even get very far.
Imagine doubling that, and then the last hour they start to turn it around. It doesn't turn around until they have this contrived moment where they're separated.
Give me this context at least, in terms of just so I can pin it down literally in my head. So when is it? It starts in the spring.
Dude, I don't remember.
But it goes through 4 seasons, right? Do you
Yeah.
at least remember what season he starts like bonding with her?
I remember that he starts bonding. I want to say winter, because he gets wounded in a hospital, and she carries him out of there. And the only way Joel can bond with someone is if they keep him from dying. So it's a purely selfish bonding. He didn't bond because he's like a paternal figure, and clearly they didn't want that to be the thing. But then in the end of the game, they decided maybe they should have that relationship, or something similar to that. Like,
I wonder if that's
maybe he should start being paternal, like he can rescue his daughter through fucking Bioshock Infinite time portal.
I wonder
or
if that's some
shit.
sort of like commentary on the
All I know
gamers who play games, like the fact that you couldn't make this emotional
I'm
bond
so
with a
bored
child.
with AAA's commentary on the gamer, because it's intellectually for 6th graders. Bioshock Infinite is a brilliant game if you're in 7th grade.
But that's what I'm saying.
Years old.
That's what I'm saying. I want.
Whoa!
So obviously I'm being facetious, but I'm saying like, what if that was the subversive element?
Then
of
it was
Last of
so
Us?
dumb
is
that I
he
didn't
doesn't
detect
bond
it.
with the child because most like young adult men are like scared of a baby anyway. So it's like,
No.
I don't want to bond with you.
Do you know how? Do you remember? And this was on the very first podcast, and you probably know this because you know Travis. How Travis talked about how he liked getting into the feeling of the game, not the nuts and bolts of it, but like the feeling of the moment while you're playing it.
Yes.
That is what The Last of Us is to the people who made The Last of Us. They're so caught up in that post-apocalyptic despair, they're surviving together, and that's the greatest virtue thing, that they don't pay any mind to the particular details which make you care about the characters. They don't pay any mind to their humanity because the game is not about humans. And you know it's not about humans because 90% of the humans are ugly, and no person that's ever lived on Earth could think, when the world collapses, legitimately, everyone will try to kill each other or devolve into rape gangs. And why do the rape gangs get along so well? That they're so big. Could you really have a rape gang that has 50 people in it, and it stays like a tightly knit rape gang? Like they're really in it together? You killed my friend! We raped girls together! And, and they already pulled the punch on that because they, like...
Because, you
they
told me
they
even...
kill them for their shoes. Yeah, that happens, sure. If you're gonna go extreme, why don't you fucking commit to it, you pussies? Fucking Wolfenstein committed to it.
Yeah,
I shot a guy in the head with a pistol and his head ripped off. It's like, wow, this game ain't fucking around.
Well, in the first 30 minutes, you have to decide which of your friends to kill, and he has his spine pulled open.
Yeah, and then later open, you see the horribly graphic way in which he was killed.
Yes.
And when you choose Wyatt looks at you, and the last thing he says is, "You're gonna find a way to save me, aren't you, Captain?" And then his spine gets ripped out.
Oh my god.
That's a game that's not pulling its punches.
No, it's not.
Oh,
Christ. We're about 2 hours and 10 minutes. What do you think?
I could go down this list of bullet points and we could see if anything sticks. I really want to talk about Sims 4 just so I can name this podcast Andrea Yates Edition.
Okay, go for it.
So,
I don't know what you're talking about.
So, Sims 4 does not include toddlers or pools. See, it's an Andrea Yates joke. You can Wikipedia it later. Someone's laughing at this joke. Everyone else is horrified. Moving on.
Oh my god.
According to EA, Dungeon Keeper innovated too much, and that's why it failed as a game.
You said the company said that?
Frank Gibeau said that.
Who's he?
He is the guy in charge of their mobile gaming division. So he is, for all intents and purposes, the guy in charge of their mobile division. And Dungeon Keeper is a mobile game.
Yes.
Dungeon Keeper is a game that is unplayable without spending money on it. It's a free-to-play game. You cannot advance in it unless you spend money. In Europe, you can't call Dungeon Keeper a free-to-play game. They made it illegal. You have to call it a paid game because you can't advance in the game if you don't spend money.
Even if you can download it for free?
Because you can't do things fast enough to not lose.
Okay.
It's like Candy Crush, but the EA version of Candy Crush, which is you start off at level 400. We already did Bioshock versus Wolfenstein. I wanted to mention real quick 2 things about
This
Ubisoft.
Week in Gaming by Brian Paxton.
Well, this is more like this last 2 months in gaming. I don't know if you've heard this because I don't know how up on gaming news you are, but Ubisoft, their excuse for Assassin's Creed not having women characters is women animations are too hard to do.
Yeah.
Even though their last multiplayer game had female characters, but I guess they couldn't port, movements. It's too hard. Whatever.
I thought we had this conversation.
We probably did.
You didn't see Frozen because that was the same excuse they gave for Frozen.
Why would I see Frozen?
You know what? I'm not going to make any.
I don't have a child.
I would have seen it even if I didn't have a child.
What circumstances could I see Frozen and not have a fucking suspicious eye cast on
Any
me?
fucking way.
I'm here for the story, I swear.
They were asked about... I'm trying to remember the exact context, but basically they talked about putting female characters into 3D animated films.
Uh-huh.
They said that the challenge with having too many female characters is that it's hard to make them look different.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just putting that out there. Yeah, it's hard to to get their models looking different. And
I
then
will.
people
Can
get
I
confused.
amend that statement? It's hard to make them look different when they have to fit into the mold of what the system thinks is sellable.
Well, I was letting that.
That's what
of,
they're
I was
really
letting
saying.
that go unspoken and just hang there. But yeah, no, you can say it explicitly.
But I like to just spell things out because I'm simple-minded.
But my point is just like, fucking
Yeah.
whatever. Oh, it's too hard. It's hard.
It's
Boo-hoo.
so hard.
Go fuck yourself.
I wanted to make this controversial statement.
Frozen was a good movie, by the way.
I'm sure
But I'm
it
just
was.
saying that's a bullshit
Can I tell you
thing to
something
say.
about Frozen? I'm fucking sick to death of hearing that goddamn stupid song.
Where do you hear it?
It's every fucking where.
I don't hear it.
Dude, it's fucking. You're not plugged into the internet.
I
That's
have
why.
a 9-year-old.
Yes, okay.
My wife teaches kindergarten.
There are
I've avoided it.
Right
They
now-
like it, but like I don't hear it all the time.
Okay. There are 900 million Let It Go things on YouTube.
Oh,
It constantly comes up in popular culture.
I've never.
It's a news story every second week, guaranteed. Someone's singing Let It Go. Fucking Pearl Jam guy just sang it like a couple weeks ago. That was a fucking news story. I can't get away from this song that I hated the first time I heard it. Oh, let it go, let it go. I get it. Enough. I fucking hate songs that just have to be big all the time. It's the Adele problem.
It's a nice song.
No, it's not a nice
Yeah,
song.
it is a
It's
nice
a
song.
grating song, and I hate it.
It's a good song.
Get it out of my fucking ears.
That's fine, but it's a good song. Just letting you know.
I want to follow this up with a controversial statement.
Which is what?
Which is about fan fiction.
What's Okay.
Well, let me say it first. I wanted to say, one, Fargo is the worst fan fiction I've ever seen, and I recently saw something something that was also fan fiction that was much better. Complete pile of shit, way better than Fargo. This is a controversial statement. Resident Evil Retribution, much better fan fiction than Fargo was.
Why would that be controversial?
Because it's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. But it knew it was dumb, and it celebrated its stupidity. Whereas Fargo was a dumb hipster looking down its nose at you, thinking it's smarter than you are. But
It sounds fine. Why would that be controversial?
I don't know, because people liked Fargo, and I don't get it.
Oh, people do like Fargo?
The show, yes.
Oh.
No idea why. It seriously is amazingly bad, and transparently, like, if you want to talk about a legacy dragging something under the water, the only thing that died a more undignified death than Bioshock Infinite was Fargo the show. Because when it's not blatantly making parallels to the movie and going, get it? Remember when a thing like this happened? It's telling the most uninteresting and unbelievable story you've ever seen. There's a character that is like basically from another planet that just magically gets away with doing this awful shit and killing people, even though it makes absolutely no fucking sense. You're seeing something go, no, that would never happen. A guy can't go into a building and kill a crime syndicate of 22 people without getting shot. Just magic. It's
Wait, this was in Fargo?
Yes.
As in, like, also
Yes.
in the town?
There's a 5-minute section from that show where it's just a shot of a glass building, and it goes from right to left, and then up, from left to right, windows you can't see through, and they're playing sound effects of people getting shot. And it was like the revolutionary way of, I guess, showing a massacre without showing it, but it was boring, and it was stupid. And everything about it was just a complete waste of time.
No, I'm trying to figure out, I haven't seen Fargo in a while. I know you guys just watched it recently, but isn't it supposed to be like a small town? There's a crime syndicate in Fargo?
No.
So
Here's what Fargo the show's trying to do. It's trying to be Fargo but. It's doing Fargo but. It doesn't even take place in the same town. Fargo takes place,
in Fargo?
no.
I
It
thought
doesn't take place
the first
in
movie?
Fargo. No.
I thought it did.
It takes place right here, in Brainerd. The movie opens up in Fargo.
Yeah, you're right.
The opening scene is in Fargo. The rest of it happens in
Wow, I
Brainerd.
forgot about that.
In the TV show, it happens in a small town called Bemidji.
So
And
what's
it's a
the
big who gives a shit.
So what's the connection to Fargo?
Just, they make references and there are parallel characters. It's like, look, this is like a sideways version of that character.
But then why call it? Oh, never mind. I don't even want to start that conversation with you. Shut up.
It's in the
I'm not gonna. I didn't want to finish that question.
No, I'm gonna answer it. I'm not.
Fuck.
You said, how's it tied together? The TV show happens in 2006, and it happens in the same universe that Fargo occurred. So in this universe, the events of Fargo transpired, even though none of the characters from the movie appear.
Oh.
That's all you need to know.
I thought you were going to talk about branding, and I was afraid that I'd open that rabbit
Dude,
hole.
I don't want to talk about Fargo the show that much. I just want to mention it sucked, and
All
that
right.
Resident Evil Retribution was more enjoyable to watch, and it was the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And they brought Michelle Rodriguez back just to kill her twice.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Technically, they killed her a billion times because they killed billions of her clones.
Oh god.
Anyway, my next line that I want, as I said before, these could be topics of conversation, or they could be just me saying a sentence and you going, okay. So the next line is, female game journalists eat a lot of commenter shit for being female, and then in brackets, it's 2014.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out, that if you're a female who happens to be interested in the medium of gaming to the degree that you want to write about games, beware, commenters will shit on you constantly. And some will be transparently because it's about you being a woman, and some won't be honest that it's because you're a woman, but they'll try to pick apart your point. But they'll pick it apart with so much energy because you dare to have a vagina and have an opinion on games.
Have you been looking at other female
Yes.
game commenters? Because
Yes,
I was thinking...
No, not commenters. I've seen female article writers and how people react to their comments versus male article writers. And the energy is noticeably different. I wanted to remind you...
examples? I'm actually kind of curious.
I can actually. There's an article writer on Game Rant. I'm going to give her a plug, even though she'll never hear this and it won't amount to anything. There's an article writer on Game Rant named Hannah Shaw Williams. I think that's her name. And she's written some pretty good articles, and some of them have been about women in gaming. And God forbid you would express an opinion on that, especially a negative one, and especially if you're female. Of, hey, I don't think women are exactly welcome here. Because the comments are just fucking embarrassing. They're just embarrassing. I feel this is why I don't embrace gamer as a label, by and large.
Yeah, no, I get it.
My next sentence really can't be a conversation. It's just, I wish I was playing more WildStar. I think
What is WildStar?
It's an MMO with the greatest character design I've seen.
So play WildStar.
I just haven't been.
Play it. What's stopping you?
All the other things happening in my life.
Like what?
Like writing and playing Wolfenstein and playing Payday and just...
Because you can take a break from writing for
It's
a minute.
there. It's there, but
Your wife's out of town for a week.
But I keep not playing it.
Yeah, just play it.
Okay, thank you.
Do it.
Next line item. Walking Dead Season 2, I'm sad to report, is terrible.
So this one I do want to talk about, because
Okay.
I can't imagine being really that hung up if there's, like, spoilers or whatever in this, but...
Let's not talk about it
I knew
too
it was
deep.
a gamble. I kind of thought it wouldn't pay off, but...
Let's not talk about it too deeply, because then we're going to have a 4-hour podcast. It's already 11.
Well, we can stop whenever you want. But...
I don't want to stop. I do want to talk, but I don't want to talk for another 2 hours.
Well, just... Okay, why is it bad at its core? Like, what's...
It's bad at its core because, like many games that come out at this time, they knew that Walking Dead Season 2 would sell, especially with Clementine as the main character. But the people writing Clementine and writing the story, I would say the people writing Clementine are okay. They're okay. I've not found Clementine to be particularly offensive as a character. I like being Clementine. I don't think making Clementine a playable character is a weakness for this game at all. But the world they've put her in is so much more boring and unrelatable and uninteresting compared to Season 1. Season 1 felt like it was filled with people, and every character felt like a real person. And you had really small, really personal struggles, and your relationships with those characters evolved. Kenny is like one of my favorite characters ever, and I spent the entire game arguing with this motherfucker. But we both understood why we were arguing and what our relationship was that entire time. That is not a thing you can commonly say about video game characters.
Yeah.
Season 2, I can name almost none of the characters in Season 2, and I just finished Episode 3. Now, Episode 3 for me was a crucible of sorts, because in Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 3 is where they tell you this game is serious. Like, you know, you had this dream that things were going to end nicely. It ain't going to end nicely. No. It's going to get a lot uglier than this, and this is how brutal this world is, and it's not going to end happy. So start thinking about what's important, because that's going to be the thing that you need to spend your energy on.
Yeah.
Not getting away from the reality of this ugliness. You're not going to find a town where everyone loves each other and you're just safe for the rest of your days. You're going to die on the road. So you need to decide what you're going to put out before that happens. That was some serious fucking shit. Season 2, Episode 3, was about, basically about not the governor. Because you're basically in a sideways version of the governor's town. It's smaller, but it's Carver is the bad guy, and he's just like a more one-note version of the governor. Well, not the governor from the comics.
What does that even mean?
It means he has no redeeming qualities. He's just an awful shithead asshole. He pushes a guy off a roof. Did the governor
have redeeming qualities?
In the show, he was ambiguous for a while. He became unambiguous after a while, but for a while, you could see both sides to him. In the comic, he was terrible.
Yeah, in the comics, he's just supposed to be like a shithole.
In season 3, Carver is the comic book version of the governor.
Okay.
Except that he doesn't rape a woman. That's the difference between those two characters.
Oh.
And he's voiced by Mr. Blonde. That's the difference. He doesn't rape Michonne. Other than that, there's really no significant difference between those two characters. And Carver is just an asshole, an awful asshole, and you spend the entire episode trying to get out of this, basically it's become a prison. It's this tiny little town that they've made for themselves that protects them from the outside world. But your whole point is trying to get out. But no significant character development happens, in my opinion. Which is throughout the first 2 episodes. Like, it made sense for episode 1 for you to not bond with your companions because they're trying to keep you from turning into Lee Jr. I totally get that. By episode 3, I need to be bonding with someone, and there's only one character in that game that is worth bonding with, and the rest of them could die for all I care. And I don't remember their names. And at that point in season 3 in episode 3 of season 1, you were losing characters that you cared about left and right.
Yeah.
You know, it was fucking brutal. And no character died felt like, okay, well, we got that plot out of the way. You were losing people that you cared about. People die in episode 3 of season 2, I don't give a shit. I don't even remember their names. I know someone died. I cut off someone's hand. You know, another person died. You kill Carver. And it's like, who cares? It's all who cares. And by this point, I need to be as engaged as I was in season 1.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be in the same way, but it has to be to a comparable degree. And I was not engaged at all. I was bored, and I was waiting for it to be over.
That's unfortunate.
In the first episode, almost nothing happens. And then in the second episode, it feels largely like filler and really ham-fisted morality shit that you can't control. Huh. Like they're rubbing that in your face. And then episode 3 is who fucking cares?
Ian was saying that part of the game seemed like that was the point, because you are playing a child character, that you're supposed to kind of feel like maybe things are sort of out of your hands. And...
I appreciate that to a certain degree.
I'm saying, do you even feel like that's intentional, or do you... I mean...
To a degree it's intentional, but this game is also not about anything. Walking Dead Season 1 was about people and how you relate to them with the time that you are given. Walking Dead Season 2 is about you went to a place, then you went to another place, then you went to another place. You met some people. Some people died. You met some more people. Some of those people died. Some of them got maimed. Some of them are okay. By the end, more of them will die. Maybe you'll meet a couple more people. Can't remember their names? Doesn't matter if you remember them. You won't remember them as characters. You know, a character gets shot and you're supposed to feel something. You're like, I don't really remember that guy's name. I know he's the doctor guy, but... What's his name again? Juan or something? I don't know. Something like that. Whatever. He's dead. Who's next? There's no human connection to it whatsoever.
That is really strange.
Yeah, I just started playing The Wolf Among Us. I'm not even done with episode 1, but there's more connection to the humanity of other characters in the portion of one episode that I've played than in the last 3 episodes of season 2. You know, it's just a cash grab written by people that had nothing to do with Season 1 and have no concept of what made it interesting or gripping. They've been tasked with continuing a storyline because it's a surefire way to get money in Telltale's coffers. That is my cynical opinion.
Dang.
And I wish I could say something else about it. And I was excited when Clementine was the main character because that is a risk. And when you take a big risk, you can have a big payoff.
Yeah,
They went the other way this time, unfortunately, where it feels like a bloated, aimless nonsense thing, and maybe they could salvage it, but at this point, even if the next 2 episodes are brilliant, you're still going to feel like it was meandering in a field waiting to get to the last hour, like Bioshock Infinite is.
Sucks.
It's terrible. Sorry to say that. In other hilarious news, Microsoft is releasing the Kinect 2 for PC.
Okay.
You know, in case you want that for your PC. It was such a smash hit on the Xbox One that they removed it. So it's not a necessary requirement.
Wait, so...
But
so
maybe
they went,
you want it.
So they went from always on to, just kidding, not always on. Now it just comes with it. To, it's not even...
They went... this was their original marketing strategy.
Because when it
you
was
might
originally
note
released...
that's why there's not an Xbox One in this apartment.
Well, yeah.
Their initial strategy was, we're going to feed you this shit that you do not want, that you do not need, that does not build upon the games that you are going to play, but it allows us a greater degree of access and control over your personal life, and you're going to take that because Sony's doing that too. But Sony didn't do that. And also their console is $100 more to pay for the privilege of them intruding in your life and adding nothing. And that says nothing of the resources the Kinect takes from the console, because the console has to record the shit that's happening out here when the Kinect is plugged in addition to the game going on. You might, recognize that as a resource drain. And it's a resource drain so they can fucking infiltrate your goddamn house. And we're living in an era where Edward Snowden happened. Yeah. And you're trying to say to us, yeah, it's not nefarious. Yeah, we're a corporation. We're not going to do anything.
It's just going to be on all the time.
Yeah. Put a box over it if you don't want it to see your dick. No! How about I don't... So after their push stalled horribly, they started backpedaling their fucking dicks off. So first thing they did was remove it. So because the Xbox One wasn't even competitive with the PS4. The PS4 is stronger, and it's cheaper. Big fail. You know what the Xbox One has over the PS4, which I know is true, because it's true of the Xbox and true of the PS3, and corporations do not change, is the interface is better. The PS3 interface is a bag of shit. And the PS4 interface, I would bet all my money on, is also a bag of shit.
It's pretty rough.
Fuck the PS4 interface. Fuck the PS3 interface. That being said, fuck the Xbox One. And I would say the Xbox 360 might be my favorite console. If it's not my favorite, it's my second favorite. And that's saying fucking a lot. In the holy trifecta of my top 3 consoles, I would say Super Nintendo, Xbox 360, and then PlayStation 2. That would be my fucking trifecta. Because that was like that was the greatest of the greatest at the time, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think the PS2 kicked the shit out of the original Xbox, even though I loved the original Xbox. But the 360, I thought, fucking ran away with the show over the PS3. And the PS3 fucking pissed me off in the same way that Microsoft did with their unveiling of the Xbox One. Because their marketing was,
first came out?
You're gonna buy it. No, I'm not.
When it first came out,
yes.
you're saying, oh, okay.
When your marketing pitch is, you're gonna buy it, so I'm not even gonna try to sell it to you, you misunderstand our relationship. You badly misunderstand our relationship. Your job is to convince me that I want this thing. Yeah. And Xbox 360's marketing was, it can do all of these things, the graphics are great, and, the system is great. Look at all these selling points. It was great. Then they got hubris.
Yep.
And the Xbox One, it was the worst. I've never been a fan of something in one generation and then went, I'll never buy their products again just by the words they've said. It would have been less damaging if their release was where they accidentally said a couple things that were a little bit racist. I'd be less offended if they did that. That's how bad it was. Whereas,
so good, even a monkey can play it. It's like
exactly.
It's like a black kid enjoying it with a monkey or
something. I would
have
been like, whoa, that's fucked up. I feel a little bit gross. But they weren't shitting in my mouth. So yeah, if you want to buy a Kinect and connect it to your computer, you could do that shortly.
Yeah, computer's probably safer than an Xbox One anyway.
Yeah.
Because you don't do much on a computer.
No.
You wouldn't be looking at anything.
I don't do anything potentially humiliating on my computer every night for at least an hour. Yeah, that never happens.
No.
You know?
Can't think of anything.
There's no folders on my computer that I desperately don't want to be publicized at all. You know, and fucking chop off your hand as you are about to click on it. What's that on your hand? I think it's a fly. And I just hit it with a knife. Is this your hand? Oops, I throw it out the window and you'd have to go get it. That wouldn't
You gotta
happen.
put it on ice.
Yeah, you better put this on ice. Hey, what were we doing? Something over here in the opposite corner of the room?
Oh, God. Format your hard drive.
Yeah. Whoa, what's this? Is it a hammer? Why am I doing this? Yeah.
Yep, so that's a thing.
I'm pretty much out of line items. I mean, we already covered E3 was terrible. I could say why I thought E3 was terrible in a footnote. Every game looks the same. Everything is the plodding, dreary apocalypse where you're a grim white guy that's going into...
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's all shooter games like The Division.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the announcers.
No.
I was like, what the fuck?
I don't know anything about the announcers, but everything at E3 that I did see, and I don't watch E3 anymore because it's a giant jerk-off trade show. It's just for people with money to jerk off on stage, and I'm not really particularly interested in that. But when you're a gamer, you can't not see things from E3, even when you're avoiding it, because it's so fucking omnipresent.
Again, I have no problem with that. I don't know if that means I'm getting older.
Me.
Maybe I'm getting older.
Just annoys me.
I'm gonna be that asshole who's like, when the new technology comes on, I'll be like, so, I'm gonna, Haley, show me how do you go to the...
No.
Plodding along.
I'm not nearly as, I don't have nearly as much energy about it as I did last year. Like, last year I was like, fuck E3. E3 is just for fucking trade scum to make money. It's the death of this industry. Now I'm like, yeah, I still agree with that, but they're just gonna fuck it to death, so what am I gonna do about it?
I'm surprised it's still going.
I'll just ignore it. It got canceled for a little while, and then everyone cried, like, you killed Jesus. Why would you do that?
Did
and then
they
brought it back,
were there
and
years
like,
where they
Jesus
were there
is
years where
back.
they didn't have E3?
Yeah, a couple years. I think. At least one.
See, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
Oh.
There was a time where they thought holding a giant jerk-off fest was not a wise money decision because it didn't pay off. And then they changed their mind.
Is PAX still relevant?
I don't know.
Oh, what goes on at PAX?
It might be. I certainly, I'm just out of the loop. You know,
yeah, I was just curious. Like, do you even keep up with those guys anymore?
I read Penny Arcade occasionally. I used to like the strip, the trenches back when it was ostensibly about something, but something changed at some point, and now I couldn't tell you what that comic is about. It used to be about how terrible game testing was, and now every week, every new panel I see, I couldn't tell you why that they decided to do that. So I just stopped reading it.
Oh, okay.
But I still read the normal Penny Arcade. I used to be more into Penny Arcade in general as a concept. Like, I'd watch their shows.
No, I remember. Yeah, that's why.
There's nothing they did. Like, it's nothing like, you know, a lot of people hate the guy, Gabe.
Because of the whole Dick thing?
For a variety of reasons. He's pissed
okay.
off people numerous times.
Really? Other than that?
Yeah, we could get into that as a separate subject in terms of, I think the generation before us is not cut enough slack for their inflexibility with the changing times, specifically with gender issues and transgender issues. He expressed a lot of transgender opinions that come directly from being a guy from a generation where those ideas are strange. You know, like, everyone who's 10 to 15 years older than us and older, to expect them to accept, like, the idea of the gender narrative changing as fast as it is unrealistic and unfair to them. They're going to say things that offend you by your standard now, but they're not living in that standard. You know what I mean? They're living in the standard that they grew up in, where transgender was a thing that you did hidden from society. Yeah. Or if you did, you were, like, cut from a different cloth. Like, they're not used to the idea because, you know, that's just not the world they lived in. You know, it's like an old racist. Like, they come from a time where people said Negro.
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna still say Negro. You could get mad about it, or you could go, you're 85 years old.
I actively
You're gonna be
that,
dead. Like, you could be dead tomorrow.
I have a customer like
get
that.
Get mad at a 20-year-old.
I have a customer who's literally had gout in his leg and would, like, spill pus on the... Like, we had to tell him to leave the store because he was literally a biohazard.
Yeah.
He's just an old fuck who doesn't take care of himself.
Yeah, no.
And he'll say, like, a racist, stupid thing once in a while. I'm like, why am I gonna get mad at you?
Yeah,
like, you'll be dead before I am. Like, I don't care.
But don't even get mad, just like...
He called me buckwheat once.
Yeah.
To my face! And I was like, okay, you're fucking crazy.
His brain's firmware is still in 1955, and the system updates come, like, on an hourly basis now, and he doesn't have a broadband connection. His connection is a hand crank. So his shit, he's still working on an update for like, oh, blacks can vote now? You know what I mean? Like, he's
I don't know
still
if he's that
processing
bad,
that.
but he's still like, yeah.
So when he says shit, you're literally hearing things from a time rift. Like a hole in time opens up and 1955 leaks out. You know, you're like...
That's Elizabeth at work in the real
yeah,
world.
exactly. You know, you could get mad or you could go, wow, time is weird.
Yep.
Like, people live long enough to fall out of time.
Well, what's funny is I watch people get offended. I'm like, he's just, like... I mean, like, I get it if you want to be offended, whatever, but it's like, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to fucking change his life? Like,
yeah.
He's going to have an epiphany and like, oh god, I've been so wrong.
Here's the problem with that, in my opinion. It's not about them. We live in a culture now where you are empowered by being attacked. Like, you gain power through fake weakness.
Yeah.
So that is just a mirror to raise your power. They are as unempathetic as that guy is in a completely different way. That guy's unempathetic because his brain is frozen in the time that it's from. And I don't mean to say that this is true of Gabe from Penny Arcade, like he's some 80-year-old racist. He's got a lighter case of the same thing, though. Like, he is adjusting. So he's feeling... I mean, I listened to Bill Burr try to figure out what a transsexual, a pansexual, and a transgendered person were on the podcast recently. It was a 5-minute clip. And you're literally hearing him walk through the concept for the first time. He doesn't know what the words mean, and he's looking them up online. And he's not... It's clear that he has no malice against a transgendered person at all, and yet half the things he said you could use as a jumping off point for hate speech, man. But hate speech is hate speech when hate is there. Not when it's like, you know, like, it's about the intent. And the intent of his words was he's trying to navigate a world that he's taking baby steps in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's navigating it the way he talks about anything in his life. You know what I mean? And it's the same thing with Gabe. So, we have this issue in society now where the younger generation sees a way to gain power by being a victim, right? So they viciously attack people, and some of the people definitely deserve it, because they are hateful.
Yeah.
But some of the people are like, this 85-year-old man, you're not going to teach him about transgender issues. You're not going to teach him about race. He's 85 years old. He's going to die and be gone forever. Very soon.
Yeah.
Within 15 years, easily, this motherfucker is going to be vanished. Like he never existed, which is where we all go. You know,
Yeah.
So you can get mad about that and let it affect your life, but I don't think for some people it's truly affecting their life. It's just a springing off point for, we live in a society now where this is how you assert your identity. You shout it out, and you shout it out in the context of, I have been trampled upon. And because there's legitimate cases of that, it's hard to tell. Like, I think that's why it's gained as much legitimacy as it has. Because we look at these issues and we go, holy shit. You know, this group of people is oppressed, and blah, blah, blah. I think I told you my opinion on this not that long ago. My opinion, or maybe you weren't here. My opinion is that a lot of this stems from hatred of women. And that has branched off into 1,000 paths. And all of those paths want to be unique and special. They want their own label that is important. Maybe a little bit more important than your label. Which, in my opinion, right now is a negative thing, but it will lead to a positive thing. Because when everyone wants their label to be the most important label...
Labels will not matter anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're killing labels. They're just doing it the dumbest way possible, you know? When you drink enough labels that you vomit them out and then you can't arrange them anymore, that is when, as a society, I think we'll be in a better place. Because
Like,
you have to
this is
treat
kinda
people as
bullshit.
individuals.
It's just, yeah.
Like, I don't want to figure out what your word for your sexuality and gender identity is. I just want to call you whatever you call your... Like, if your name is Steve or whatever the fuck, you're like, I'm Jennifer now. Okay, I'll just call you... I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do. The religious right cares.
Yeah.
And they're a huge part of why this is a thing at all. But, like, I'm not lumped in with them. I don't care. Whatever you do to get through your life being happy, as long as you don't fucking hurt another person, I don't give a fuck. You know? And even if you do hurt them, but it's like everyone hurts someone on their path of discovery, as long as that hurt isn't fatal, or doesn't destroy as long as you're not fucking raping someone, or destroying their life, or fucking them up, like in a very serious way, I don't care. Live and bump into the walls. That's what we're here for. You know, but right now we have a culture that's like, you shouldn't bump into the walls. You should know that they're there. And also, there's a million fucking walls. You're in the labyrinth. There's no lights on. and if you bump into the maze, you deserve to be killed by the Minotaur.
Yeah.
That's where we're at right now.
Yeah, basically.
And
That
eventually
was a great analogy.
Eventually it's gonna get to the point of like, let's just fucking forget about the walls. If you want to be a Minotaur, or you want to be a wall, or you want to be a fucking whatever the fuck you want to be, no one should care.
Yeah.
Indifference is equality. You know what I mean? Not specialness. Specialness is not equality. Specialness is inequality, because you're special.
Yeah.
Oh, look at this group, they're different. Instead of, don't look at this group, because who cares? You know what I mean? Not don't look at this group because they don't deserve to have equal rights, but don't look at this group because they're not remarkable. That's real equality.
Yeah.
You know, real equality is where you look at someone and don't have any thoughts at all. You know what I mean? You look at them and they're in front of you in line, and you're like, I wish this fucker wasn't in front of me in line. I want a fucking sandwich. And it doesn't matter if they're fucking wearing a dress or whatever the fuck, or what they think or what they're attracted to. No one cares about that in line. I just want to be in front of you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, you know, we're all standing here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I don't know if Penny Arcade is still
That's my
relevant
great
or not.
equality speech. But they've been through so many cycles of abuse because he's made statements about transgender people that he literally said, like, this exact thing. Like, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I just don't understand where you're coming from. And I don't understand where you're coming from because I'm older than you. And I grew up in a time where you're coming from did not exist as we know it today. You know, but we live in the great depression of empathy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
no, I would agree.
We don't have like a World War II or a fucking collapse. I feel like I'm doing the Fight Club speech, but it's true.
Or it's like
Our Great Depression is not our lives. Our Great Depression is our lack of empathy for one another.
Or it's like that, you know. Everyone's. I think it's been used ad nauseum, but I always remember it in South Park.
Mm-hmm.
The fucking like black and white, like Schindler's List episode where he says your intolerance will not be tolerated.
Uh-huh.
I mean, that's basically what it is. It's just like it's no.
I think the best South Park episode, honestly, was. Do you remember the Mormon episode where they're going?
Yeah,
dum,
no,
dum,
that
dum,
I
dum,
love
dum,
that one.
Where
yeah.
the conclusion of that episode is like, who cares what we believe?
Yeah, no, that was really great. I love that.
This is what my family believes.
My family, it's like we're happy.
Yeah, we're
good
happy.
People.
That's what matters.
I love hanging out with my family.
And if
So
Mormon,
fuck you. I love what you said.
yeah. And if the Mormon Church was really like that, then it would be great. They're not, and
No,
that's
yeah.
a large part of the reason we are where we are, and eventually they will be like that, because everything modernizes painfully slowly. There are still Christians that believe that dinosaur bones are a test of faith, but it's not as many Christians as it was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, everything gets dragged into modernity, whether it wants to or
Skeleton
not.
of Satan found.
Yeah, exactly. Bones of Satan.
Oh Lord.
Anyway.
All right, we're almost.
I don't
at
know what
3
else
hour
to
mark.
say.
I think we
So,
should call it.
I think that's enough disgusting progressive positivity from me, and
Yay.
I'm sure the way that I've phrased things is I've sat here sweating for 3 hours, my head is
It's
spinning.
fucking warm in here.
Yeah, it gets hot in here, but as the podcast goes on, my thoughts become more fucking rapid. I'm start to just be throwing grenades rather than pondering or giving a thoughtful analysis of something. So I'm sure one day, when this podcast is discovered, buried under a rock 50 or 500 years in the future, whatever society has become, their views of all of these sexual and identity issues will be far more advanced than ours are now, and everything I've said will be horrifically offensive. But understand I'm a product of my time, and I don't mean to embarrass you.
But we are embarrassed.
But how you're embarrassed in me is the same way I'm embarrassed of people who lived in the 1500s. It's inevitable. We have to accept that we're going to humiliate someone in the future.
Oh yeah.
At some point. As long as the future persists, the things we say will be ignorant by their context. It's unavoidable.
Until we get to Star Trek.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about life. You can keep growing so much that even the growth we have now is going to be embarrassing. And that's hopeful.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I love about Star Trek. You know, look at these fucking innocent people.
That's what we
They're
liked about
so much better than us.
That's what we liked about Wolfenstein.
Yeah.
It's
Let's
hopeful.
kill all these Nazis together. You know? It's about shooting hate to death.
Literally.
It's about shooting rockets at hate until its mech falls over. And then you shoot more rockets at it, and you pull him out. And hate pulls out a
And
grenade.
you stab him 3 times.
But it's okay, because you stabbed him, and he's definitely going to die.
Yes.
He's hoisted by his own petard. Anyway, on that uplifting note, I think it's time to stop.
It's time to sign
I
off.
didn't mean to end like an episode of Top Gear, but what can you do? So I'm sure we'll insert a song here. Enjoy.
Good night.
You're welcome.
I've been thinking that you've crossed the line. If you disappear, that would be just fine. 'Cause you waste my time and waste my money. And you're not too cool and not so funny. Spreading your seed all over the town. Getting too greedy and messing around. Oh my gosh, you must be joking me. If you think that you'll be poking me, don't take me on, no, no. Don't take me on, no, no. Don't take me on. Shatter the light, but you think I don't already know. Don't try to deny, 'cause my fuse is ready to blow. It's your turn to learn. Think you know where to go. It's a shame, 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 shame for you. Please don't come around and knock on my door, 'cause I don't wanna have to pick you up off the floor. When you ask if we can still be lovers, I'll have to introduce my brothers. I think that they could teach you a lesson or two. By the time they're finished, you'll be black and blue. You'll be crying like a baby. A sea of tears, they'll call the Navy in.